It's 4 o'clock sharp and we should start.
Yeah.
ACA Study Circle, I welcome all of you at ACA and I would request you to join me for our ICA motto.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 पुरुषो निर्विमाणः तदेव शुभ्रं तदेव शुभ्रतमं सर्वे
Thank you everyone. I, convener of ACA Study Circle, welcome you all for this 2-day VCM on a very important topic of accounting and audit. And we all know that now assurance is a specialized job. So I would hand over to our President Anup Kumar Sangai for the formal welcome speech.
Thank you very much, Convener CA Vivek Agarwal. Very good evening, friends and my colleagues on this platform of ACA Chartered Accountant Study Circle EIRC. I am CA Anup Sangai. Welcome you all on this virtual event on audit and accounting with a very apt theme, hindsight to insight to foresight. I welcome all our distinguished and most learned speakers today. And to start with, I welcome our very learned and valued speaker, our own CAP-R Ramesh, who is the former chairman of Deloitte India. Sir, ACA once again welcome you on this virtual platform, sir.
Thank you.
Our second very knowledgeable speaker, CA Sri Abhinav Rajvanshi. He is from Jaipur. Welcome, sir, at the platform of ACA. ACA members will be definitely be benefited from your deliberations in next an hour and so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Friends, we have with us our Central Council member and a resource personality, Vice Chairman AASP, CA Srinivas Joshi, who will be joining shortly. ACA welcome you, sir, on this virtual platform. We have with us again CPA Rajiv Agarwala, who will be joining us shortly. He will be from New Jersey, USA, and a very knowledgeable resource persona who will be deliberating at the parallel session today evening from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. So he'll be deliberating at a parallel session for this particular accounting conclave. So welcome all of our distinguished guests at ACA, sirs. I welcome all our members and delegates who has joined on this virtual event. Please stay with us for next 3 hours and we assure you for a complete value addition for your knowledge base. And I also welcome our conclave committee chairman, co-chairman and entire committee members here. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Over to conclave committee chairman, CA Rishi Khatorji. Over to CA Rishi Khator.
Thank you, thank you, CA Anup Sangai, and thank you, convener CA Vivek Agarwal. So when the convener and the president of ACA approached me and asked me to, why don't you become the chairman of this 2-day VCM? And nowadays, accounts and audit, they say, it does not look so exciting because now exciting is crypto, exciting is taxation, exciting is IBC. I said, well, accounts and audit remains our bread and butter. And believe me, friends, with this conclave, we are going to have a very rocking, very knowledgeful session. We have packed for you a lot of learned speakers. Now, speaking about the theme, hindsight to insight to foresight, when I was an article, I was prompted by one of our clients and who said that, Mr. Khator, you people do just post-mortem work. So that was like hindsight. After the fact review, when the auditors detect and report mistakes, they don't really speak about evolving legislations or forthcoming risk. This was hindsight, and then our profession moved on and progressed to developing insight into the business processes, providing value addition in the terms of contributing to the efficiency, effectiveness of an organization, risk control. And with the increasing expectation of the stakeholders, the profession was propelled to help the industry, trade and commerce towards developing foresight, future strategies, red flagging problems before they occur. So this was foresight. Now, all our topics in this VCM, two-day VCM, is entwined towards this theme of hindsight, insight, and foresight. And when we speak of this theme, we can think of no other person to be a keynote speaker like Mr. P.R. Ramesh, who is the doyen of our profession. Being the past chairman of Deloitte, he has seen it all. And we have learned a lot from him. When he speaks, friends, believe me, the ideas sparkle. We receive trend-setting views, and we receive out-of-the-box thinking. So, friends, we are blessed. We are really blessed to have him as a keynote speaker on the theme wherein he will be speaking about the journey of the profession from earlier days to the present day, and probably an indication of what is to come in times to come. And with this, I conclude my opening remarks about the theme. And may I request the Vice Chairman, C.A. Pramod Mundra, to please formally introduce C.A. P.R. Ramesh, who is our very own dear friend and mentor. I would say he's a role model for me, at least, in the profession. So, Mr. Pramod Mundra, can you please introduce Mr. P.R. Ramesh?
Thank you, Rishi. It's a really indeed an honor for me. I'm really privileged and blessed to introduce formally our very, very distinguished guest, Sri P.R. Ramesh. Sri P.R. Ramesh was a former chairman of Deloitte India and a former member of Deloitte Global Board with over 40 years of experience in the profession. He is also a member of ICAI, and he has been associated with various regulatory bodies, industrial bodies, and ICAI over in various capacities which are the agenda. He has been the former member of SEBI, Committee on Disclosures and Accounting Standards. He was a member of Committee for Reforming the Regulatory Environment for Doing Business in India set up by Government of India. He was a member of working group set up by the RBI for implementation of Ind AS and assisting in convergence to IFRS by banks. He was especially invited to National Advisory Committee of Accounting Standards. He was an invitee to the committee set up by RBI. He was the former member of Technical Committee to review the form and presentation of balance sheets of the RBI. He was the former member of IRDA, a standing committee on accounting standards. He was a member of working group on harmonizing IRDA corporate governance guidelines and disclosures with the new Companies Act 2013. He is also in the advisory committee of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India on service providers. He is in CII. He is a member of National Council Committee of Financial Reporting, Committee on Economic Affairs, and Committee on Regulatory Affairs and Governance. He was the past president of Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry also. He is also associated with various professional bodies. He was a formerly member of Accounting Standard Board of ICAI. He was the vice president at large position representing the International Association for Accounting Education and Research Foundation. He was the past member of Vision and Restructuring Committee set up by ICAI and also the Auditing Practices Committee of the ICAI. He was the past president of Secretarial Standard Boards constituted by ICSI. He has lectured extensively in India on various forums like ICAI, RBI, CII, and abroad on variety of subjects, including auditing and accounting standards. Now, I will request Sri P.R. Ramesh, the floor is yours, and we are really keen to listen to you, your wise words and guidance for future. Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
Thank you very much for that very, very generous introduction, which was completely unnecessary. Considering I am part of you, I'm going back, it's like going back home, being a past president of ACAE. But nevertheless, sincere thanks to each one of you, Rishi, Anup, Vivek, and other good friends, Sanjay Bhattacharya, all of them are there. It's really an honor and a privilege to deliver this keynote address. I'll take the next 15 minutes. But I must, at the outset, also acknowledge the presence of the speaker of the day today. Abhinav is there. You're really fortunate to have him. Srinivas Joshi to follow. I think you have a galaxy of speakers for the next 2 days. Very well thought out topics and very good speakers which you have chosen. I have no doubt there'll be a significant value addition as you do that. Let me first compliment you on the theme, the journey of the profession from hindsight to insight to foresight. Rishi very aptly described it and the whole host of it. But it is not just our profession which has had this transformation from hindsight to insight to foresight. It is the business world and the world in general has moved towards that. We as service providers adapt ourselves to what's happening around us. And that perhaps is one of the reasons why you're holding this program also, is to try and understand what is it. And Rishi correctly said, it is also we need to look at what's going to happen and prepare ourselves for that. So if you look at the business world around, I won't spend too much time, but that's a subject matter completely different. We are in the midst of what we call the fourth industrial revolution, which is the congruence of the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world. And that's going to impact every industry, impact our lives, transform the world dramatically. And that will mean commensurate changes in everything, including laws and regulations. For instance, when we talk of driverless cars, what should be the law? In an accident, do you punish the owner? Do you punish the manufacturer? Whom do you punish when a driverless car is involved? So I'm just saying, these are trends which are happening. We need to observe those, and those are reality. It's not going to go back. And then start looking ahead. Are our institutions ready for it? Are our laws ready for it? Are we prepared to be able to, our people, are they skilled enough to deal with all of this? The world will move on. And if you look at that journey, it's the world today, and even take the current pandemic. Are you interested in hindsight of the pandemic? Are you interested in insights of the pandemic, or are you interested in foresight of the pandemic? Surely you want to know what's going to happen ahead. So that is the reality. Now, I will take up, ours is the second oldest profession in the world. I don't want to say which is the oldest profession in the world. But from the time Luca Pacioli in 1494 developed double entry system of accounting, we have progressed. But the question is, how far have we progressed? Take two of our products and then ask your question about, are we dealing with hindsight or insight or foresight? I'll just take the two products. One is accounting and the other is auditing. Let me deal with accounting first. Accounting historically has been dealing with hindsight. When you prepare a balance sheet and profit and loss account, it is profit and loss account for a period, it is balance sheet as on a certain date, and all those things we were on historical cost accounting, and that was only hindsight because cost was a reality, value is an opinion. So you only recorded cost. In a 100-year-old company, if it says land, it will show land at 100 years ago. It doesn't reflect current. So it is neither insight nor foresight. You can't get anything from that. You only have got maybe hindsight. Yeah, I bought 100 acres of land for 100 rupees some time ago. And today, you can't get 100 inches of land for 100 rupees. Forget 100 acres of land. Just look at where your product is before we talk of foresight. We need to deal with that product. Same thing for businesses. Is a business happy looking at a balance sheet which has such low values if it's a 100-year-old company? There are hidden values within it. It's not being reflected. You want to buy another company, what is the value you will pay? And that is why we come across with this fancy accounting, which huge goodwill cropping up and whole host of things, and then intangible assets. And unfortunately, in accounting, we have intangible assets like goodwill, which is not impaired also, which is only tested for impairment, which is not amortized, which is a crazy accounting. But the simple point which we need to ask ourselves, is the product accounting fit for purpose? Does it deal, is it more for confirmatory value or does it have predictive value? Can you pick up any balance sheet and P&L and predict the future? So if you're talking of foresight, can you do that? The answer is no, because you're either on historical cost or you are on mark to market. For instance, let me give you mark to market. We say exchange rate, liability should be mark to market. At 31st of March, if let's say rupee is 74 rupees to a dollar, you are marked it to liability to 74 rupees a dollar. The very next morning, rupee is 72 rupees a dollar. Of what use is that balance sheet? That balance sheet is of no use because the rupee has moved on and you are living in history. So it is back again to hindsight, which is no use for foresight. So we are driving, looking at the rear view mirror when we should actually be driving, looking ahead. So if you read the book, The Death of Accounting by Lev Baruch. Lev Baruch wrote a research book, The Death of Accounting. What does that book? He begins that book, it's jointly written, of course. He begins that book by comparing the US Steel balance sheet of 1901 with the US Steel balance sheet of 2011. He said in 110 years, steel industry has changed, but accounting hasn't changed. The balance sheet looks identical. So what are you doing? And then he goes on to analyze. What he does is he compares all, we all say financial statements are useful for decision making. Investors use it. Everybody uses it. We are proud of it. He did a research study, I think of 40 or 60 years of all stock price movements in the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and looked at the results also. So before result, after result. That means before the balance sheet and P&L were released and after. No correlation with the prices. In some cases, the turnover may have increased after the results were announced, but the stock price fell. Absolutely. So he said, maybe people don't look at top line. Let's look at correlation for bottom line. No correlation. Then, okay, maybe they don't look at bottom line. Maybe they look at gross profit. No correlation over 40 years. So he says, then who is reading your product, which comes 2 months after the year end? By then, the world has moved on. So either people are getting information from other sources, or your product does not have information which is required by them. Then what are we talking about in terms of hindsight, insight, or foresight? This is the time for us to address accounting and say, is accounting enabling foresight? Can I predict my cash flows for the next year using foresight? If supposing I am staying in a rented premises, very old rented premises in Bada Bazaar. Last week of the year, I moved away from that rented premises at Bada Bazaar to a very, very fancy looking premises, either in Rajarhat or whatever it may be. Now the question is, will your cash flows next year be the same? Will your rental expense next year be the same? The answer is no, clearly. But the question is, where in the financial statements is that information available for for it to be of predictive value? You have lost a significant supplier. You have lost a significant customer who has terminated his contract. Where is that information available? So what is predictive value? We may pride ourselves in talking of a journey of the profession from hindsight to insight to foresight. But the predictive value is zilch, is zero, minimal. At best, we have a little more insight with a lot more disclosures in financial statements. Now with the new revisions to Schedule 3, with all the aging, etc., there is far more trying to build in some insight. But foresight or predictive value, a lot requires to be done. So if we don't address that, people will use their own tools to determine what is the future. Take analysts. You just go through transcripts of analyst calls of all the listed companies. The questions they ask has got nothing to do with the balance sheet. It's everything outside of the balance sheet. So then you should ask, why is it not in the balance sheet? What is mining reserves available in the balance sheet? The answer is no, it's the most valuable asset. So as an accounting profession, we have to go away from debit the receiver, credit the giver, debit what comes in, credit what goes out, all that thing. It is the time to re-examine our core product, which is accounting. I'm not saying it was not relevant in the past. The question is increasingly its relevance is being eroded. And in a digital era, imagine if people had access to modular financial information, they would prepare their own set of information to suit their own needs. If they want today, who cares for tomorrow? Wait for tomorrow's newspaper. Cricket, if the wicket falls, I know instantly. I don't need to see tomorrow's newspaper. Won't people want that? It is real time. So when the world is moving real time, it's only a matter of time where it moves away from real time to foresight. So that's the reality. In a highly competitive world, we want to know the future. And look at the Fortune top 10 companies. Who are they? No longer the ExxonMobil of the world. They're completely different order. Walmart may be at the top, followed by Amazon as second, whole host of things. So that's insofar as one product accounting is concerned. I urge you all to debate, look at your own, ignore the standards. Standards are all fine, but doesn't mean the standards are serving the purpose. They only ensure uniformity. Barring that, I don't think it serves the purpose in any way. Sorry for being critical, but take the next product, auditing. All over the last 20, 30, 40 years, frauds have happened, failures have happened, organizations have collapsed, businesses have collapsed, millions of investors have lost millions of dollars, whole host of erosion has taken place. Now, when all that erosion has taken place, people want to know, fine, you have done the audit. What for? I didn't know this will happen. Where have you mentioned in your report that this organization is going to collapse tomorrow? Where have you mentioned that this organization is zilch insofar as or has zero value? Where? You give a standard boilerplate report saying true and fair view, which serves no purpose. To some extent, maybe hindsight, confirmatory value, but no other insight. Recently, United Kingdom had commissioned two or three studies. One of them was the Kingman's report. The other is the Bryden review. And clearly, the Bryden review came up with this point as to the purpose of audit needs to be changed. It can no longer be verify and confirm. Who wants verify and confirm? We want a different purpose. You need to take a larger responsibility. And it reminds me of the title of that book written by the former FBI director, James Comey, A Higher Loyalty. He says the auditor's loyalty is not to the client. Auditor's loyalty is not under the Companies Act. He has a higher loyalty. So there is a higher expectation from you. You are spending days, months, weeks in a client, poring over his records, and you are financial experts. If you can't predict, who can predict? Audit committee meets 4 times a year and maybe few hours a year, max 50 hours in a year. Whereas you spend not 50 hours, you spend 50,000 hours in large audits. And if you can't predict, who can? So the purpose of audit has to shift away from high confirmatory value to predictive value. There will be a need for confirmatory value, but you need to provide insights, you need to provide foresights. And let me tell you how that is happening. Those pressures are happening through audit now. You're asked to opine. You're not asked to confirm, you're asked to opine many things on, particularly in matters of propriety. When you say a transaction is not prejudicial to the interests of the company, you are sitting in judgment. There is no document which tells you it is prejudicial or not prejudicial. You're looking at documents and arriving at a view as to whether it is prejudicial or not prejudicial. And you please study Caro 2020. It has built in a lot of predictive value information. It's collecting both insight and foresight is coming through Caro 2020. There is a killer paragraph on whether the company will be able to meet its liabilities which arise in the next 1 year from the balance sheet date. You as an auditor, with your knowledge of the ratios, with your knowledge of financial statements, with your knowledge of the plans of the board of directors, etc., is there anything which you have come across which leads you to believe that the company will not be able to repay its liabilities as and when they fall due in the next 12 months? Isn't that predictive value? Isn't that foresight expected of the auditor? The problem only is that when you use foresight, you will be punished based on hindsight. 2 years later, organization collapses, they'll say, look, your foresight is all negligent and all that. You didn't predict properly, so they will come after you. Then comes this whole subject of audit documentation, SA 230 and all that is there, but that apart. But the fact is, the user wants predictive value information in audit. You need to build that, and I'm glad you have a subject on forensic audit. That also needs to get embedded in, because they also want to know, are there potential frauds? Now, let me tell you, when you go to a doctor, when you take a pathology report, when you go to a doctor, is the doctor, do you go to a doctor only to say, doctor, my health is all right? That is not the only thing which he's going to tell you. He will say you are a cardiac risk. You need to bring down your cholesterol. You need to do this. So in a way, he's giving you predictive value information. And that is what you expect from doctors. The rest is already there in terms of report insight. Today, Google gives you that insight. The question is, how will you get that foresight? So I'm really glad that you have taken on this topic, which is hindsight to insight to foresight. But I want what each one of you to do is look at your own product and say, where am I in this journey? From hindsight to insight to foresight. Am I closer to foresight? Then you're lucky if you're closer to foresight. But the question is, all our services will have to be that. Even in advice, in taxation and others, the shift is moving away from compliance to advisory. When GST happened, clients came and said, we don't want advice. That law we know. We want a tool which enables us to comply, and then we want to deal with the future. How do I deal? What changes should I make to my business? How do I take care? There are many things which they look at for the future. So if you say, no, I'll file your tax return, I will do, that is compliance, that is past. Who cares for the past? It can be automated easily. And with faceless assessment, even that process perhaps is gone. What is being sought is therefore foresight, which even from a taxation point of view, so in the profession, every element of the profession, you'll find we need to shift to foresight. And that means, what does that mean? The professional body and we collectively have to have a strategy for the future. Where is that roadmap? What is our vision for the future? Where is that roadmap? What are the elements of the roadmap? How are we going to measure ourselves on the roadmap? Supposing I'm traveling from Kolkata to Chennai. I have a roadmap. I know the journey, how many kilometers. I have milestones. Oh, I have reached Bhubaneswar. I have reached Visakhapatnam. I know whether I am on track or behind track or ahead. What is the profession's roadmap, if I may ask? What is the profession's strategy? It's good to say partner in nation building. It is good to say, again, hindsight to insight to foresight. But what is our own foresight? This is something which I would urge, and even ACAE to start thinking and developing. What do we see the profession of the future, and what do we see as the future of the profession? Both of this has been my topic all the time, and I always believe that we must prepare for foresight. Aren't we as parents, don't we start saying, oh, mera beti ka shadi karwana hai, mera bete ko ye karwana hai. Don't you do all that? Don't you yourself plan for succession in your own practices to see that your son does CA, takes over your practice? Isn't that foresight? Should we not, as a profession, have a collective foresight and say, which are those services which are sunset services, which are those sunrise services? I urge you to start thinking on these. So thank you very much for a very patient hearing. I may have exceeded time. Pardon me, Rishi, you said 15 minutes. I may have gone up by maybe 5 minutes. Sometimes, as you age, you become emotional. So that's what happens. And particularly when you're speaking at home, even more emotional. Thank you very much. You're muted, whoever is speaking.
Yeah. May I request CA Priyank Sanghi to please offer a formal vote of thanks because Mr. Ramesh will be soon leaving off. Please.
HK,
Yeah.
great to see you.
Yes.
Sorry, Tarun, sir, CA Tarun, please.
Yes, yes. So I just wanted to make that correction that I am supposed to give the formal vote of thanks. I, CA Tarun Gupta, thank the convener, president and chairman of the session of the conclave for giving me this opportunity to present a formal vote of thanks to our past president ACAE and today's keynote speaker CAPR Ramesh ji. Sir, your deliberation today has set the stage right for our 2 days VCM on accounts and audit. You have, sir, very aptly defined the profession's journey on our theme today, that is hindsight to insight to foresight. Sir, your deliberations are always inspiring and they make us sit up and realign our thoughts in the right direction. Sir, I have noted some of the points that you mentioned, that accounting is merely hindsight and increasingly the product of accounting needs a rethink. Sir, with respect to audit, you said that the purpose of audit needs to change from confirmative value to predictive value, that is from insight to foresight. I am really amazed how you linked all the 3 important words in our theme with the profession of accounting and audit. So that is the value you bring to such seminars. And sir, as you also mentioned, sir, that we as a profession, we need to prepare for foresight. Sir, these golden words which we hear from you, I have always kept notes of what you have said, and it's always in my library, and I always, whenever I get time, I go through them. And just for your information, sir, I am son of Mr. S.M. Gupta, your very fine friend.
Oh.
So today when I told that Mr. P.R. Ramesh is going to be a keynote speaker, he was very happy, and I'm sure he must be listening to you.
Please convey my regards to him.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Sir, I am presently the treasurer of ACAE and trying to discharge my duties as sir given to me. Sir, today we are blessed that you could take out time from your busy schedule and address our members, sir. Sir, as a small token of our love and affection, sir, we will present you with an e-memento. I will, sir, just share the screen. Sir, is it visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
I
thank you.
had a foresight that you will present me with a e-memento.
Sir, this is what is the smallest thing, sir, we can do for the time that you give to us, sir. Sir, but we will request if you can, sir, take a color print of this and frame it. And sir, maybe you can put it in your library. That is Sir, just
If you will mail this to me, I will do so.
sir, we will mail this to you, sir.
Sure,
But
sir.
we will request if you can take a color print and frame it. It will, sir, our memento will also find a place
Will
of
do.
pride in your library, sir, which we can see in the screen where so many mementos are placed. Sir, this memento will also be present there.
Without doubt.
And sir, Rishi Khatorji will be very happy that the VCM on audit and accounts finds a place of pride in your library, sir.
Without doubt.
Sir. Sir, you can also share this e-memento on your LinkedIn profile, on your Insta, sir, on Facebook, on your WhatsApp profiles, so that you can share it with your friends and family members. And with these words, sir, I will once again thank you. And now I will hand it over to our conclave chairman, C. Rishi Khatorji. Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you, Tarunji, and thank you, Mr. Ramesh.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Sanjay.
We have with us C. Abhinav Rajvanshi, and who is from Jaipur. Is going to speak on fraud detection and forensic audit, its growing relevance. May I request C. Pramod Mundra to formally introduce him, and then we are so very eager to listen to C. Rajvanshi. Mr. Pramod Mundra, please.
Thank you, Rishi. It's really indeed an honor again for me to introduce a very young and dynamic Mr. Abhinav Rajvanshi. I was going through his biodata, his profile, and in just 10 years of his practice, he has achieved so much. It's really an honor and really great thing. He's an experience in field of forensic and fraud audit of more than 10 years, business valuations, internal audits, special audits, bank audits, due diligence audits, transactions advisory, and forensic audits. He is currently leading the forensic audit advisory practice at R&A. He has done forensic investigation on behalf of banks having total loan exposure in excess of 10,000 crores, and also assisted CBI, ED cases, FIO cases, HOB Bhopal, and private companies in internal investigations. He has handled internal auditing of one of the largest World Bank funded projects of Rajasthan. He has assisted RP and IRP in various 100+ NCLT in insolvency matters. He has conducted due diligence audit at pan-India level for Reliance Retails and other leading corporates. He has conducted forensic audit for CBI Bhopal with 15 IOs in team against the largest bank fraud by coal dealing group in Madhya Pradesh. His educational experience is a member of ICAI, and also he has secured 10th rank in CS Final Professionals. He is certified forensic professional from ICAI. He is a member of ACFE USA and certified fraud examiner. He is a member of Jaipur Chartered Accountants Group and Vittya Samanvay Samiti. He is a registered valuer of IBBI. He has been consulting to various NBFCs, FIs, banks, treasuries on banking regulations and RBI norms. He has been associated with IIRIS Consulting for conducting pan-India forensic audits. He has conducted more than 200+ forensic audits, and some of the companies has been declared as fraud operations. He has conducted forensic audit of 100+ cases for SBI, Bank of Baroda, PNB, and other leading banks with full satisfaction of bank's management of an NP account. He has been Central Statutory Auditor of State Bank of Patiala. He is a regular speaker on forensic audit and fraud detection at CAG office, PNB, Indian Railways, CBI, and other corporates. He is a partner in Rajvanshi and Associates, which is a 30-year+ old firm, impaneled as forensic auditor with SFIO, IBA, leading PSU banks, RERA, Haryana, Karnataka, CBI, AD. He has been awarded as youngest forensic audit professional by SFE Society. Now I will request Sri Abhinav Rajvanshi Sahab to start his deliberation, and we are very, very keen to listen to you on this very, very interesting topic of forensic audit and fraud detection. Over to Rajvanshi sir.
So first of all, thank you, sir. Thank you, Pramodji, for such a wonderful introduction. And thank you, C. Rishi Khatorji, Chairman of the Conclave, and C. Anup K. Sangai, President ACAE. And I hope I am audible. If anyone can just confirm.
Yes, yes, you are perfectly audible, sir.
Great, sir. Great. And thank you, Tarunji. And what he said was very right. Ramesh sir has set the tone for the conclave in, very correctly he has set the tone for the conclave. So I've been practicing in the field of forensic audits from last 10 odd years. And I feel very privileged to be present among such esteemed audience and other such learned speakers. So having said that, the topic which I have today is fraud detection and forensic audit, growing relevance. So let me ask you, I'm sure most of you would have, attended the Institute's FAFD course. And I'm sure, I'll really appreciate the efforts of ICAI. Almost, 2,000 members we have who are, certified fraud professionals now. So that is really a thing of achievement. And I also really appreciate the tagline of today's conclave, insight to foresight, which very well summarizes, the need of shifting the forensic audit as a post-mortem exercise to using it as an internal control tool in case of organizations which are most prone to the frauds. Starting with my presentation, so I'll be sharing my screen. I hope the slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So my presentation will be divided into two parts. First part will be the fundamentals. We'll be understanding what fraud is or what forensic accounting is. The second would be the current scenario of forensic audits in India. And the time allotted to me is about an hour, and I'll try to summarize my presentation in that timeline. So I really like this quote. Well, as through this I have rambled, I have seen lots of funny men. Some rob you with a gun, some with a fountain pen. So this fountain pen might have been replaced by a laptop or a mobile device, but this practice remains the same. Another quote of Mahatma Gandhi I'd like to quote is, the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. So a white-collar executive with a briefcase, a typical profile of fraudster, can steal 10 times more, than 100 men with a gun. And with a computer mouse and with the relevant tools, a fraudster can inflict a much greater damage with 100 white-collar professionals. Now, coming to a statistic, $3.6 billion, $3.6 billion US dollars. Now, what is that? That is the global cost of fraud to all the organizations worldwide. And this statistic has been published by ACFE, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, which happens to be the apex body of fraud study in the world, which is based out in USA. So even every 2 years, they come up with a report to the nations. In this, you can see, they have various statistics. 3.6 billion, average loss per case is, almost close to 1.5 million. So all these statistics tell us, why a need for fraud study, forensics audit is important. Now, coming with certain statistics in the Indian scenario. Now, this is an extract of the RBI's annual report for financial year 2021. There you can see in financial year 1920, almost 80% of the frauds have happened in the public sector banks. Around 1.48 lakh crores out of 1.85 lakh crores were the frauds, in the public sector banks. Now, why is that so? That becomes a question. Is there a problem with the controls? Is there a problem with the management system, mannerism in fraud reporting? What is it? Also, one more fact I like to share with you, the average time lag between the date of occurrence of fraud and the date of detection of fraud is 23 months for the frauds which were reported in financial year 2020-21. Now, that particular time lag is 57 months in case of cases exposure above rupees 100 crores. Now, again, a thought needs to be given on this. Why is that time lag, almost of double or 4-5 years, in detection of fraud? Now, various factors can be, behind this. In case of larger accounts, banks might be trying to protect the account, or the time taken to unearth the fraud usually is, also takes time. The time taken for forensic auditor, but a thought needs to be given on all this. Now, starting with my presentation, we'll be discussing the definitions of forensics. Some part of my presentation will be in Hindi, and I'm sure most of my professional colleagues will be comfortable with that. So forensics, the word forensics, if the credit has to go to someone for popularizing this particular word, undoubtedly, I'll say, CID. I mean, CID, I'm sure most of you would be knowing, CID is the longest running, series in the Indian television, CID crime. So I'll definitely give credit to CID if somebody has to be made responsible for popularizing forensics. I mean, they have shot more than 1,500 episodes, and 15-20 years they've been running in Sony television. So I was interacting with a very famous forensic science expert who was working extensively with CBI Mumbai crime branch. And while interacting with him, she shared his experience, that he told us that almost 90% of the cases which are telecasted in the CID are based out of real crimes or real case studies. Though I mean they repicturize the episodes, natya rupandran uska kar dete hain, but still it's very hard to believe, because they are based out of real crimes, and all that has happened in the real life as well. So let us just try to understand how the forensic professional or the forensic science expert used to come up with the conclusions and findings. So I'll just share, मौका वारदात पे जो बाल मिला है, उस बाल की खाल का डीएनए टेस्ट करते हैं तो पता चलता है वो आपके डीएनए टेस्ट से मैच करता है। उससे ये साबित होता है कि मौका वारदात पे आप मौजूद थे। जो बाल की खाल मिला है वो डीएनए टेस्ट आपसे मैच करता है। इससे मैं दावे से कह सकता हूं कि मौका वारदात पे आप मौजूद थे। So my first question is whether the forensic expert was present at the site, whether the forensic specialist has seen the suspect. The answer is no. So under the provisions of Indian Penal Code, he cannot testify. He cannot he cannot testify himself because he was not physically present there. However, the investigator, can give the relevant facts and evidences as an expert before the court of law. Because now, coming to the definition, because forensics is a field where science and technology are used in an investigation. So if you try to Google what is forensics on Wikipedia or Google or Oxford Dictionary, you will find exactly the same definition. Using science and technology to establish facts or to present evidences before the court of law. So now we are at this level, we are using standardized methods in collecting and evaluating data. However, despite those standardized methods, I would say common sense remains to be the number one factor in conducting forensic audits, because we know no two cases are same, no two facts of two cases are same, the modus operandi differs from case to case. So how is forensic investigation different from financial investigation? They are connected, but they are not the same, because in case of forensic investigation, the ultimate purpose is to present first the facts and evidences, second before the court of the law. Only then forensics come into place. So, but the investigator we just spoke about, the CID science expert, is obviously a science expert, and we are here speaking of forensic accounting. Forensic accounting is a case when expert accountants are involved in establishing facts or evidences in terms of financial accounts. That is the definition of forensic accounting. Now, what is forensic audit? So forensic audit, I mean, believe me, you are using science tools to for an investigation. It's forensic science. Accounting tools are being used in forensic. It's forensic accounting. But then what is forensic audit? Forensic audit is a term which you will only hear in India. You will not hear anywhere else. Everywhere you will either find it forensic risk professional, forensic accountant, forensic examiners, fraud examiners, or fraud detection agency. And why is that so? Because we, the members of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, we don't like calling ourselves accountants. Hence, auditors. Because both these definitions can be interchangeably used. Believe me, there is no particular definition for forensic audit, because we have been auditing all the while. So it's forensic audit. So in my humble submission, I would like to say that the correct term should be forensic accounting, where you are presenting accounting records either in the natural form or in the analyzed form as evidences before the court of law. So I keep interacting with a lot of young professionals, students, corporates also. And, there is a question. I mean, it's a very challenging field, forensics. It's a very interesting field. You will feel like you're Sherlock Holmes. But is it rewarding enough? So my reply is yes, it is rewarding. However, in last 4-5 years, it has become very competitive, but it is still rewarding. It is rewarding. It is also intellectually appealing. But court kacheri ka chakkar, CBI ke chakkar, SFIO calling you, ED, the inspectors, the officials, they keep calling you bar. You have to go to all these places to represent. I mean, it's a mess. You still want to, despite all these, you still want to do this area of practice. So my honest reply is yes. If we as professionals, if we as chartered accountants are hesitant towards a certain field of practice, considering, it involves the law authorities or enforcement agencies or maybe CBI or SFI or even police, NCLT, then I think you should always think twice before entering this field. The moment you take up a case of forensic audit with a bank or if a corporate or with any other authority, you should always make a provision for all this happening maybe 1 year down the line, 2 years or 3 years after. So your job is first to investigate. Second, submit your facts and evidence. Third, be prepared for calls from CBI, courts, and because we as chartered accountants, I believe we are the best suited professionals for any form of data analytics and presentation before these authorities. The very objective of this field is to establish the facts and evidences before the court of law. Forensic, financial intelligence, due diligence, ठीक है, but for forensics you need to be present. Court आपको 50 बार बुला सकता है, summon कर सकता है, cross examine कर सकता है. So I mean, not only this, I'll share a case. We were doing forensic audit of a borrower, and that borrower challenged the RBI's master circular on fraud in the High Court, Rajasthan High Court. And that particular borrower's advocate, they also made us a party in that writ petition, and court has asked us to reply along with the lenders. Me and my firm has also been made a party in that particular writ petition. I'll just share a screenshot with you. So in all these cases, your strong point should be your facts. Forensic audit, believe me, it's a fact-finding exercise. You just come up with the facts. What are the facts? Now, in this case, I'll just share an example with you. Hundreds of, believe me, hundreds of such writ petitions have been filed in Delhi High Court. Hundreds of, after the based on the RBI's master circular, challenging the RBI's master circular and on fraud and the mannerism in which the forensic audits are concluded and the borrowers are classified as fraud and and what is followed afterwards. Recently in Telangana High Court, they have given a very landmark judgment on this, and this has come only on 30th of December 2020, which state those following points we'll be discussing. But before that, I'd like to ask you whether we as forensic auditors, are we supposed to give any opportunity of being heard to the borrowers or the persons who are being audited? No, because we are being appointed by the bankers. We are supposed to ask the borrowers for data, information, accounting records, but we are not supposed to share our findings or anything else with the borrower unless we have a consent, unless the banks explicitly ask us to do the same. Now, coming up to the decision in the Telangana High Court judgment, it has clearly stated that a copy of the forensic audit report should be furnished to the borrower. Second, an opportunity of being heard should be provided on the basis of principles of natural justice. Third, the status of the fraud should be set aside, and a time of 3 months should be given to finally conclude what is happening, given the JLM, the Joint Lenders Forum, sufficient time. Currently, this ruling is sub judice at the Supreme Court, and the next date of hearing is July 13. So we're waiting for that particular date, and I'm sure either there will be some change in the interpretation of RBI's master circular on fraud, or the way mannerism the banks or the public sector banks have been concluding frauds. So having said that, I'll like to summarize what forensic accountant or forensic auditor, because these terms I'll be using interchangeably, meaning almost the same. With the help of financial and accounting records and using paper trials, we should be able to establish what is the modus operandi for fraud, and be prepared for cross-examination by attorneys. Not happening immediately, may happen down the lane after 1 year or 2 years, because the burden of truth lies on us. We as prosecution, because in India, as per the laws, prosecution has the burden of proving. So we as on a part of prosecution, the burden of the proofs lies on us. Believe me, I'll share my experiences. The opposition are so shrewd. Believe me, the advocates they hire, the fees they pay, I mean, it's many more times, certain times than the forensic audit fees which we are getting. So they'll work so hard, they'll work so night and day, and I mean, they'll try to induce doubt in the minds of the judge, and even a slightest of the doubt can make the judge, make us revisit our entire forensic audit exercise, make us, change what is the narrative. Even the slightest of the doubt can change the narrative. Believe me, in such a way that गाड़ी driver चला रहा था, Salman Khan नहीं. So, I mean, you should always be beware. Your facts should be very strong. Now, the purpose should be to establishing the facts beyond any doubt. Now, coming to data analytics. Data analytics play a very major role in forensic audits. So, I'll share an example with you. So, I was, in Bangalore, I was visiting the corporate office of a very big consulting company, and there in the boardroom, I saw that, there was a plate in which there was written, "In God we trust." In God we trust, everybody else must bring data to the table. So that is the importance of data in case of forensic audit. So believe me, in case of frauds, data, if you have the right tools, you have the right data, half of the job is already done. I'll share another statistics with you. You can see that, these are the ways in which how the occupational frauds have been detected. So almost 40% of the occupational frauds have been, detected either by way of a tip. So tip, or I should say whistleblowers of the organization, play a very major role in detection of frauds. You don't need to be directly speaking with the promoters, but even the smallest people or the most junior most person in the organization might be coming up with something useful to you. So you should never undermine each and every personnel in the organization who's having some part of the other data, because you never know how, you are able to collate the facts and come up with the modus operandi of the fraud. Now, question comes, gathering and collection of data, or I should say data mining, being a very vital component of the forensic audit. What data is relevant and what data is not relevant is a very important exercise. You need to be very strong on the data analytics part, and the forensic auditor needs to be very diligent on this. So I'd like to share a quote: "Torture the data and it will confess to anything." Now with that, forensic auditor should have the right tool, should be the right person with the right knowledge and right team members to finally come up with the forensic audit report. Because believe me, data will be so humongous, data will be so scattered, so massive. आपको क्या लगता है data आएगा, will be served in a tray to you, like we have been doing statutory audits or financial audits where the consent of the auditee is already there? A big no. What has happened is usually इतने बहाने बनाए हैं borrowers ने, data दे देंगे, कोरोना हो रहा है, 2 महीने 3 महीने, advocate से आपको legal notice भिजवाएंगे that this forensic audit exercise is not legal. आग लग गई, earthquake has damaged, and very recently, hard disk corrupt हो गई. So we don't have the tally data with us, though we can send you hard copy records, which are bundles, spiral sets, and you can, spend months and months in, trying to analyze or come up with those something. Now, what are the, tools for forensic audit? Excel remains to be one of the most popular tools in, forensic audit. All those functions, all those, functions we have been studying, like Pareto analysis, Benford's law, various statistical tools. So all these are very, it's very easy to put up in Excel. And believe me, you don't need any other software. Excel remains to be the most popular tool, be it, analyzing the bank statements, analyzing any other data which has been received from any other accounting software or ERP. But there are chances in case there are truckloads of data. We need to understand that we need softwares like IDEA or other, softwares. But Excel for reasonable size data remains to be one of the, most proper tool. I'll also appreciate, the institute's FAFD course, which has been so well drafted. I took it in 2014, and it has been so well drafted that they have IDEA course one day, they have Excel sessions one day, they have digital forensics one day, they have case studies one day. So it's a very complete package. Now, coming to once you receive data from the borrower, whether you should just start working on it or you should verify it. So verification of the data which you have received from the borrower is very important. Whether it is in case of the insolvency forensic audits or transaction audits, in case of public sector bank forensic audits, double verification of data is very important, because the data which they will give you, I'll share a image of how, we've been getting data in certain forensic cases. These are, bundles of data, and this was for only one particular financial year. And truckloads of, bundles of data and spiral sets of different ledgers. The balances are not matching. The bank accounts are not tallying with the bank statements. Checks unpaid at the start of the year. Debtors, creditors, balances, a total mess. And believe me, tens of the professionals will not be able to derive something out of it. So you should always, rely on the bank statement analysis, which is a very simple thing. You obtain the bank statements in the notepad or the Excel format from the bankers. You try to analyze and come up with the fund flow analysis. In case of CC accounts, in case of term loan accounts, in case of any other account. Also ask for current accounts in the other banks, which have been opened in other banks. Because, it has been found that mostly they have been used as a conduit for diversion of funds. And this particular bank analysis is very simple process. The same is accepted in the court of law. The same is accepted by CBI, other investigation agency, and all the authorities accept it. Now, we have already discussed what is the difference between the financial audits and forensic audits. The major one of them being the objective. Objective in case of financial audit, it's general, it's advisory nature or a control procedure. Whereas in case of forensic audits, it's more towards the legal issues, towards, presentation towards the court and culpability and liability. Now, coming up with another theory, which I feel which is very relevant when we come to, speak about fraud. And this theory was given by a very famous sociologist, Donald Cressy. He stated that this theory proves to be true in almost 90% of the cases. He said that, all these three factors are relevant when a fraud happens. First, pressure. Pressure can be either a need of money or an emotional distress. Second, opportunity. That particular fraudster has an opportunity that he'll be able to execute his plan without getting caught. That is, absence of controls or nobody's checking his work. Third is rationalize. He should be ultimately able to justify his wrongdoings. So all these, believe me, all these, three factors are always, present in a fraud. And he also stated that in case of 85%, there are chances that if all these elements are present, there are 85% of a chances of a fraud being happening in the given conditions. Another very important theory which has been given by ACFE USA is, they have classified the workplace or the occupational frauds. These occupational frauds have been classified into three broad categories. First one of them being corruption. Second, financial statement fraud. So we are aware of with both of them. Corruption being bribery, illegal gratuities, economic extortion, and financial statement frauds. Either you are overstating the financial records or you're understating. Overstating is again, a fraud. You're trying to make eligibility for bank loan or any other credit more than your actual eligibility. So you're overstating. And another one of the broad category is asset misappropriation. Now there are various types of frauds and asset misappropriation. I'll be taking two for discussion. For an example, I'll be taking skimming and cash larceny. I'm sure most of you would have studied and are aware of these definitions. So the difference point between these two definitions are the moment the cash is stolen from the system. Cash larceny is the theft of cash or the asset after that particular money has appeared in the books of accounts. So after accounting, if theft happens, that is cash larceny or just larceny. Whereas skimming is the theft of cash before it has been recorded in the accounting system. Now not recording the sales or pocketing the cash, and all these practices are, classified in the skimming. So I believe it's very important to understand certain terminologies because the way they are, expressly used in all the forensic audit reports and all the fraud professions. Now coming up with another case of fraud scheme, which is Ponzi scheme, and I'm sure most of you would have heard about this as well. So Ponzi scheme is a scheme in which, there are multiple depositors, multiple investors who are lured to invest their savings and huge sums of money into a particular scheme that they'll be getting a regular fixed income, which is, very excessive, or share in profits. But very rarely is the case. So, Sahara can be classified as a Ponzi scheme where, ultimately when the funding stopped or the authority intervened, ultimately the scheme collapsed. So we were part of investigation of a very famous case. I'll just share with you. IMA Jules. If you I think if you want, you can Google it. IMA Jules is a very famous, I should say infamous case in Karnataka, Bangalore, where, currently KPID, Karnataka Protection of Interest Depositors Act, is working on unearthing the case. And they have been engaged almost, 15 to 20 forensic firms to finally come up with the accounting trail of the forensic audit. So they've, almost thousands of crores have been, diverted in this, Ponzi scheme. Now, all these definitions, I think fraud and forensic audit accounting, we have already discussed. Now, what are the components of forensic audit? Forensic and accounting review, digital forensic analysis, field investigations, data mining, application of interviewing skills, good read technology. There's a term called read interviewing techniques. Technical assistance using help of, experts such as handwriting experts, specimen signature experts in a report. What are the opportunities for chartered accountants in case of forensic audit? We'll be discussing them in the upcoming slides, but there are very different or very unique opportunities are there for chartered accountants. Like, we already are aware of, claims, arbitration or mediation cases, insurance claims, engagement by lawyers. There are certain panel of lawyers who usually, hire different forensic auditors for different case. Usually court accepts all these certifications. Media as a part of investigative journalism. So, I mean, a friend of mine who also happened to be a forensic auditor was last year, he was preparing the, money trail or accounting trail in case of a very famous Bollywood celebrity, his accounting record, because he was suspected for dealing in drugs and all. So, I mean, all very good opportunities we have in a very upcoming field. Now, coming to the definition of fraud. Fraud has been defined under various acts, under various guidelines. So, Companies Act has a certain definition under 447 of the Companies Act. Then there's a definition under Section 17 of the Indian Contract Act. There's a definition in the Standards of Accounting 240. There's a definition in CARO, I think, which has been referred. There's a definition in Insurance Act. There's a definition in RBI's Master Circular on Fraud, which has referred it from again to the IPC. They have a definition on RBI's Working Group on Information Security. So there are various definitions of fraud. No particular act will be able to give very correct definition of fraud. But I believe Companies Act has a very clear, very complete definition of a fraud. We'll just, I'll just speak it in front of you. Fraud is an act or omission or concealment of facts, or it may be an abuse of position by any person or by any person in connivance with the intent to deceive, gain undue advantage, injure the interest of company shareholders, creditors, or any other person, which are the stakeholders, whether or not there is a wrongful gain or wrongful loss. So with this, I'll share a case. There was a forensic audit in which we could not find any diversion of funds. So there were not any diversion, no siphoning of the funds were there. But the books of accounts were, were falsificated in such a manner that they were not getting the eligibility for the bank loans. The turnover was inflated, the purchases were inflated, the entire, the books of the company were inflated. This was not resulting in any particular, wrongful gain or wrongful loss to anyone. But because of their wrong practice or because of their breach of trust, I should say, they were not eligible for that particular loan limit. Their DP was not, up to that particular limit for getting the CC limit. Now, coming up with certain more definitions, misappropriation and then criminal breach of trust. All these are definitions under the Indian Penal Code. Now, why are we discussing these definitions? Because these definitions are very important when we are, concluding these forensic audit reports. In case we are classifying a particular account as fraud, ideally references to these particular definitions should be given, because ultimately your report will be, presented to the court. We'll be discussing a case where we are presenting a conclusion for you, and I'll be reading out the same in the upcoming slides. Now, coming up with another, placement, layering, and integration. So I'm sure most of you would have heard this term, placement, layering, and integration. Now, this term is very actively used in money laundering, or a typical money laundering case, follows this particular process. I'm sure, we all know what is money laundering and all the process. So I'll try to say that this process can also be found in case of, frauds, or we have found in forensic audit that this particular process has also been there. So I'll take, instance of a case. So we were in Bhopal and we were auditing, doing a forensic audit for CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation, Bhopal, and almost 20 inspectors or, the HOB was involved in this particular case, and we were asked to assist them and prepare a proper transaction trail. And there were almost 40 to 50 firms, 40 to 50 concerns which were, in a single group or in a family-owned, family-owned concern. So there were multiple sole proprietorship firms which were opened by in the name of, the son, the daughter-in-law, the son-in-law, the brothers, the sisters, and in each and every family member there was a concerned individual, sole proprietorship concern open. Plus they were having certain LLPs, companies, and in all the entities, those 30-40 entities, they had taken loans from various public sector banks, and the loans, whether they were CC limits or term loans, they were within the threshold of 1 to 4 crores. Why was that? Because that they were within the powers of that particular branch manager, and there were no requirements of other control procedures like stock audits and other control procedures, because in certain public sector banks, all these restrictions or control procedures comes only when the threshold exceeds 5 crore rupees. So we came across certain trend. The modus operandi was, they were utilizing the funds from a particular concern, from a particular CC limit, a particular entity, and those were being layered, transacted in with other related party and diverted into another concern, that they were procuring another real estate from that particular funds. And these particular funds, after diverting, and that particular real estate was being further mortgaged in securing another loan into another sister concern. So this was a chain of transaction, and that particular group ended up with almost 50-60 entities, and ended up with taking 300 crores from the banking system, and out of which almost 80 crores were from a particular specific public sector bank, only one public sector bank which appointed us. So there were no actual sales and purchases transactions which were happening. Also, the actual movements of the goods were not there. The funds were just moving from one particular entity to another entity, and that was just to ensure the servicing of the CC limit and the term loan accounts. The transactions were so much, repeated, or I should say between the related party, 40 lakhs going from A to B and this to this, that they had typically, churned the CC accounts. And it became very difficult for us to finally, prepare the audit trail. We were not able to deduce it at the first instance. However, at the end, with the help of a whistleblower who happened to be an ex-employee of that particular fraudster, who helped us, preparing a trail of the transaction, and he, ultimately, there were, hundreds of trail we had to prepare, and he helped us prepare a trail of transactions, and we ended up, preparing the forensic audit report, and that was finally submitted to the CBI, and a case was filed. So I'll just share. If I just share the case, there's a company called Srinath Trading Company entity, in which you can see they have taken a loan of rupees 4 crores, and out of this 1 crore they have straight away transferred to another sister concern for purchasing various immovable properties, and remaining funds they have transferred to another sister concern. From Srinath Trading Company they have transferred to Shubham Enterprises, and from another sister concern they are transferring a total amount of say 65 lakhs into that particular entity. Now from Shubham Enterprises to another sister concern, they are transferring that fund of rupees 65 lakhs. Though these transfers are happening in stages, but the flow of the funds is so complete, and the fraudster behind this is so sure of his method that they were able to do so much of layering. So what is layering? Layering is is a repeated transfer or withdrawals by churning the CC accounts. We can see they kept on buying immovable properties, immovable assets. Now finally integration, they're finally integrating the funds in a common pool, and they're using for the intended purpose, like purchasing luxury cars and immovable assets. So finally the funds were integrated, and we concluded the flow of 75 to 80 crores in such a manner that 30 to 35 crores were used in purchases of immovable properties. 30 crores were used in to serving of the bank interest, or just in the system, got absorbed in the system. Around 10 to 15 crores were still parked in the related parties So, I mean, these are the different modus operandi of fraud. Now, coming up to that part of the presentation where we as chartered accountants or we as professionals in the field of accounts can get an opportunity to work as forensic auditor. Now, first is banks and public sector banks and private banks. So there is a RBI circular. In case of all the cases, exposure of all the cases exceeds 50 crores. In case of both fund-based and non-fund-based limits, banks are mandated to get a forensic audit done. So all the banks will be getting a forensic audit mandatorily done in case the exposure exceeds rupees 50 crores in case of RFA accounts or in case of NP accounts. Then certain times in case of restructuring of accounts, along with the TV study, which is also mandated in case of restructuring, bankers also propose a forensic audit done. Then certain times in case the exposure is below the 50 crores limit, in case of non-cooperative borrowers or in case of willful defaulters, or whether the branch is suspecting a diversion of the funds, these banks can get a forensic audit done when they have taken approval from the appropriate authority and get a forensic audit initiated. Now, who are doing the audits in case of public sector banks or other banks? So currently, each bank has their own panel of forensic auditors. I'd say private banks also have their own panel of forensic auditors. And some of the banks are also referring to the list which IBA, Indian Banking Association, has for forensic auditors. So this is one opportunity. Second one of them is, I think most of the CA firms are very well aware of, the transaction audits which are happening in IBC, which has the very, specific scope of, section 43, 45, 49, 50. 43 speaks of, preferential transactions. 45 speaks of undervalued transaction. 45, which clearly says, if in case you are transferring an asset to any particular party, be it a related party, within the threshold of 2 years, or any other party when the threshold is 1 year from the date of CIRP, and if that asset has been disposed at a price lesser than the arm's length, then that particular is classified under that particular section of IBC. Then we have section 66 and section 49, under which which says fraudulent transaction, under which there is no particular look back period defined in that. So understanding the related parties is a very important factor in this, especially in IBC audits. So there are various tools. If there's a website, I think I'm sure most of you would be aware of, is Zobacor. I'm not promoting it, but there are very many websites on the public domain where you just simply write the name of the director and you'll find what are the different concerns or what are the different entities with which he's associated with. So, I mean, very public domain, use of public domain is a very important tool. Then third is, forensic audit opportunities with the regulators, with CBI, SEBI, NCLT, RERA authorities, SFIO, EOW. So CBI also impanels chartered accountants at individual level and also chartered accountant firms to help them. And in certain times, it has been found that CBI, when the case is referred to them from the PSU bank, they ask the particular bankers to appoint a forensic auditor and also to bear the costs associated with it. Then RERA authorities nowadays, I mean, from last in 1 or 2 years, we have seen RERA Uttar Pradesh, RERA Karnataka, RERA Gujarat, RERA Haryana. I mean, all the state RERA authorities, have themselves, appointed, made a panel of different forensic auditors. Their also target is, to ultimately identify what are the different diversion of the funds, or whether the adherence to the TI account is being properly followed or not, or the diversion from one particular project to another project is happening or not. Then we have SEBI. SEBI also has floated a tender for impanel with them very recently. Their target is to get a forensic audit done for listed companies or shell companies. Then SFIO also has a list of impaneled forensic auditors. Currently 35 odd firms are impaneled with SFIO, and they do their own investigation and hire CA firms to assist them at their own office. Now all these are regulators, and all these are banks. But apart from all this, there is a very big opportunity, I should say, which lies is in the private segment. It's in the corporates. There are lots of corporates. So today in the morning I was having a call with JCB India. So there are various opportunities in I should say in the corporate world, where there are cases where they want to take actions against the corrupt employees, or there are MNCs who have from China, from Japan, who have invested their funds in India, and they're not satisfied with the current management, and they want to get a forensic audit or a forensic exercise done to understand what has happened, or just to prove allegations and come up with the something in the court. Then there is a big opportunity in case of arbitration. Arbitral court can sometimes award a forensic audit to be done in case of mergers and acquisitions, in case of operations and mismanagement. In case of acquisition, they want a due diligence or a forensic audit to be done before the takeover. Then there's a very unique opportunity, and I've done in couple of NRI cases, divorce forensic audit, or partner settlement cases, where the flow of funds is common, and almost they have a common pool of assets, or where the funds have been used from a common pool, and they want to know who has contributed how much. So that is also a place where forensic auditors can contribute. Now coming to generalized scope of forensic audit. So every bank has their own scope, all the public sector bank, be it SBI, Bank of Baroda, PNB, and all the public sector banks. But usually the scope boils down to certain points, like such as what is the money trail, or what is the audit trail. They want to know what is the bank statement analysis, what is the utilization of the term loan, or where the end use of funds which has been given to the borrowers. Second is tracing the source of contribution by the promoters. Now there have been certain circumstances where there are not genuine funds which have been infused by the promoters. It has been found that the borrowers themselves divert the funds in such a manner that these funds are itself flowed back into the system. That is, there's no real infusion by the promoters. So very recently we were doing a case where we found that there was a certain borrower, and in that case the debtors were not repaying the funds from last 4-5 odd years. And when we asked that the promoters to submit their individual net worth statements, we found that from the promoters of that particular debtor, that particular amount has already been realized in the books of individual director of that company. So all these there can be different ways, different again modus operandi of frauds and attempts to fraud by the fraudster. So all these things need to be taken care of. Then commenting on substantial transactions, concentrating transactions, movement of unsecured loans, transactions with any related parties, sister concerns, verifying the receivables and all that. So above is a very illustrative list. It's not an exhaustive list, but again depends from case to case. You need to apply your own judgment depending on the situation. Then these are certain acts which can be relevant from the perspective of forensic audits: PMLA, Corruption Act, Companies Act, Insurance Act, IBC, IT Act, the guidelines from the RBI and SEBI. So believe me, the SEBI or guidelines, in case you are doing forensic audit for SEBI, or the RBI Master Circular on Fraud, I would suggest you to go through that particular circular in case you are doing a forensic audit of a public sector bank. You should understand what is the definition of fraud, what is the mannerism of conclusion of fraud, and how the banks have been, how the bank should deduce a particular case, whether it's a fraud or not. Now, what are the different courses, or what are the different ways we can, improvise our existing knowledge if we want to specifically, move towards, forensic auditing or maybe fraud professionals. So ACFE being the apex body in the world, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, USA. This is one of the topmost organizations, thousands of professionals worldwide employed across the globe, and it's a very interesting course. The course curriculum has been very well drafted. Even the FAFD course where we have has been inspired, I should say inspired from this ACFE, and it has got 4 exams, and they have an annual membership fees. And it also sounds similar to our own ACAE. So very, I would recommend this if somebody wants to make a, career in this fraud profession. And the good thing is that this particular qualification, CFE, Certified Fraud Examiner, is accepted in India as well. If not considered above the FAFD, it's considered equivalent. So even you'll see all the requests for proposal forms from IBA, SFIU, CBI, RERA, PSU, private companies, you'll find, there's a specific mention in case of forensic audits, they need a ACFE professional. Then second, we already have is, our FFD code, which is again, has been replaced to FAFD. And I think when at the time when I was doing it in 2014, it was FAFD. So the detection has been, prevention has been replaced with detection. So this is a general way, a procedure where the public sector banks procure forensic audit work from different professionals. This is they usually lay a certain criteria, eligibility criteria, terms and conditions. Now, how do they seek quotations? How do they seek financial quotations? They usually have to mention what is the name of the account, what is the outstanding exposure with their bank, what is the period of audit, because period of audit, believe me, is a very important thing which needs to, we all know period of audits plays a bigger role, and that needs to be explicitly mentioned, because usually public sector banks have a the period under review is 3 to 4 years, 3 years before the NPA date and 1 year after the NPA date. But in case of term loans, it's usually from the inception or the disbursement of the term loan. And in certain public sector banks, they've also found that that they have just simply ordered the forensic audit to be done from the start or the disbursement of the sanction of the loan, whether it be 15 years, 10 years, 20 years. So, we have also seen such cases. So, period of audit is very important. Written scope of audit is very important. The eligibility criteria, the time limit, the cutoff date, and all these details. Now, what are the documents ideally you should be asking from the borrower? You should be whether the borrower is going to cooperate with you or not. You should always after the date of appointment as forensic auditor, the first thing you should do is you should be emailing to the particular borrower, because you have to conclude in the report whether the borrower is cooperative or not, and you should have adequate or sufficient tools or sufficient evidences. You have made attempts to inform the borrower that he is being forensic audited and requesting the certain documents from him. So very simple documents, complete books of accounts, in case that particular entity is using Tally, Busy, or any other SAP, ERP, so you ask for access of that particular software. Bank statements in soft copy, bank statements of current account opened in other banks, of which the lender banks are not aware of. Financial statements, sales tax return, GST returns, TDS returns, stock statements which have been submitted, net worth statements, and all these details. The time frame for forensic audits is usually 30 to 40 days, like 4 to 5 weeks, I should say, and it may extend to 90 days. After the submission of a report, a report is usually discussed. So that first report or first cut of the report, we usually classify it as a report for discussion rather than a draft report. So that report is discussed in case of multiple members, in case of multiple bankers, or in case of a joint lenders. All the joint lenders are present. They discuss on the final audit report, and the forensic auditor has to make a presentation, coming up with the final conclusions of the report and what are the observations. Then final, asked to submit the final reports with the final conclusion, and that then the bank has their own mechanism. They submit it to the fraud monitoring committee, and once that particular case has been classified as fraud by the top management of the bankers or the fraud committee, then they report it to the RBI and they report it to the CBI in case the threshold limit exceeds. So my another topic which I would want to discuss with you is conclusion of the forensic audit reports. Now, there's a question whether banks can force you, or the public sector banks, can they force you to conclude the forensic audit report? My question is no or yes. My answer is no. So can the banks force you to conclude whether the account is fraud or not? I can see there are certain questions. How much of political pressure have you faced diluting the findings? So all these things they happen. You need to be a good forensic professional. You need to be diligent in your work. So my question is whether the banks can force you. So we have seen in certain cities they are not accepting the reports if we are not concluding that the account is fraud or not. So there have been circumstances that if the account is not a fraud, or if there's no wrongdoings or there's no fraud, they want you to write that account is not fraud, which is not, possible, or if we as professionals will not give us such a certification. Because there are various, factors, like there is always a lack of complete data. In forensic audit, no matter how deep you go, there's, always something which is, left out. Then lack of conclusive evidences, that you don't, cannot completely rely on the documents you have. But considering forensic audit as a fact-finding exercise, ultimately, you just need to present the facts with your accounting tools and all those analysis you have done. You should prepare and give a conclusion to the banks, or a conclusive reply to the banks, that this is the amount which has been siphoned off, this is the amount which has been parked in this information. You should quantify and try to give it in a form of conclusion. Only when in cases you are very sure, or you have sufficient, evidences that the account has fraud, then, you should, take the relevant references to the section of the law and then conclude it as a, fraud. We'll be discussing a couple of cases. So now, starting with, CBI's, what are the thresholds? So CBI, in case of Central Bureau of Investigation, the threshold is 1 crore. Before 1 crore, you need to report a case to the local police. And if the case, of that particular amount of fraud exceeds 1 crore, then you need to report to the CBI. And if that particular threshold exceeds rupees 5 crores, the CBI's BS and FC cells come into the place. And as discussed, they impanel various, professionals, chartered accountants, for assisting them in unearthing the case and presenting to the court of law. Now, what is a sample structure of a report? State Bank of India has given a sample structure of a report, which is more or less similar to the same, where they have stated, ideally how all the forensic audit report should be structured. Now, covering letter, starting with covering letter, what is the period of scope, and, giving a description that this is the first report for discussion, addressing to all the lender banks, then followed by index and followed by an executive summary. So executive summary, we all know while preparing reports, there might not be, a chance where each one of them would be, completely reading the report, other than, certain people. So an executive summary with proper quantification of the facts and in a tabular format is a very much recommended thing in case of forensic audit report. Then coming up with the background of the company, background of the banking facilities, what are the different CC limits, the accounts, account numbers, different branches where the accounts have been opened, the history of the accounts, the history of the stock audits which has happened over the year, the history of the financial statement, the history of, the major communications between the lenders and the borrowers. So all these things, should find a place in the forensic audit report. Then detailed timeline, scope reconciliation, you should map, the scope-wise reconciliation, detailed methodology, procedures performed, followed by, ending with the limitations and disclaimers. So these limitations and disclaimers need to be very well drafted. Then glossary and abbreviations in case you are using certain technical jargons, followed by annexures, appendixes, and, exhibits. Now I will be discussing why, annexures, appendices, and exhibits play a major role. Then what is the approach, to be taken while preparation of a forensic audit report? One of them is, case background. First, we need to understand why the situation has arisen, or why there is need for getting a forensic audit done, or why the case reached a state that the forensic audit is being done. Understanding what is the end result expected by the clients, basic understanding of the, the key target, then creating a hypothesis. The ability to think a fraudster is very important. Then how do we conclude a report? He'll be taking concluding paragraph, as I mentioned, but one of the very important point should be, we should first comment on the cooperation received from the management of the borrower. Whether the borrower has cooperated, whether he has provided the relevant records, whether he has provided the relevant records, but those relevant records were, were not correct. They had been, changed, interchanged, or, manipulated, and all these things. Then commenting on the related party transactions. So in case of, bank frauds or forensic audits, I should say, unless the audit is being governed under a particular act, you should go beyond the legal definitions. The definition in AS 18, Income Tax, Companies Act, transfer pricing, you should go beyond these definitions and try to come up with connected parties. If there's a friend who's having a company, you should go with the definitions for connected parties. Then commenting on the fictitious revenue, commenting on the related party transactions, litigations which are going, and finally quantifying and stating your comments. So this is a sample conclusion paragraph which I am stating. So this was from a forensic audit case which was from a 1,000 crore exposure company, and which was based out in Indore, and which was engaged in soya bean products. So I'll just read out the concluding paragraph. The company has recorded purchases and sales transactions with related suspected parties, which do not appear to be genuine transactions. That is, without any actual delivery of underlying stock or without actual movement of goods, resulting into falsification of books of. In certain instances, it can be observed that the borrower company was incurring losses from trading with related parties. The sales and purchase transactions undertaken by the company are to inflate the books of accounts and deceive the bankers. Accordingly, by window dressing its financial statements and availing finance in excess of its eligibility, reference may be made to section 447 on falsification of books of accounts under Companies Act regarding the definition of frauds. So here, you can also refer the definition as mentioned in the Indian Penal Code. So this is the actual, screenshot of the conclusion, 447A of falsification of books of accounts under the Indian Penal Code. Now coming up to what are the the points we should one should keep in mind while preparing a forensic audit report. Are the report should be very understandable, because in case of especially bank forensic audits, there might be chances that each and every user of the report or the reader of the report is not an accounting friendly person. So the language should be tried to make as easy, as understandable as possible. The report should be unambiguous. References should be made, that you should give a clear referencing if you're referring to that particular table, or if you're referring to particular section of that particular act or particular analysis on this particular page number. So references are very important because it will be challenged in the court of law. Believe me, it can be manipulated, it can be stretched by the opposition advocate. So references are very important. Report should offer valid conclusions, complete facts. Evidences should be mentioned. Technical jargons should be tried to be avoided. Using flowery language should be avoided. Then using proper all the working papers, all the workings which you have done, like you have done a bank statement analysis, or you have done a financial statement analysis, or maybe you have done an analysis of the simple stock statements comparison with the debtor's position from the books of accounts, and all the working papers should ideally form part of the annexures of the report, or the working papers. All your working papers should form part of the annexures or exhibits to the reports, because whether the report is of 100 pages, 200 pages, or it may stretch to 600 pages, out of which 400 pages are of the annexures. The annexures should always form part of the report and should be legally submitted to the banks or the authorities. Now, coming up to the RBI's Master Circular on Fraud, and we have already discussed, it is very important to understand what is the RBI Master Circular on Fraud. And in case you are accepting any forensic audit from a public sector bank, I would, advise one to go through these, the definitions and the Master Circular, how the manner of classification of forensic audit is. Now, the definition of fraud which they have given is from the Indian Penal Code: misappropriation, fraudulent encashments through forged instruments, unauthorized credit facilities, cash shortages, cheating, forgery, and accounting, fraudulent in any other cases. Now, coming to another very interesting topic, and I think with this, almost the time given to me for 1 hour. Sir, how much time do I have?
Sir, you can continue for 10 more minutes.
I think that will be fine. So very interesting topic, because I've been running, all the way. Because I wanted to complete this in an hour. So social media, believe it or not, Facebook, Twitter, or even I should say LinkedIn, they play a massive role in, in case of, digital, in case of forensic investigations on all these forensic audits. And they have such huge data. They have data of, each and every person uploaded in the public domain, and there are no certain checks. If I want to search about a certain person, believe me, data about him, his family is very much available on the social media platform. So such a big database. So I'll share a case with you. we were auditing, we were doing a forensic audit of a case where the exposure was around 400-500 crores. And that particular borrower was incurring continuous losses in trading. That particular borrower was incurring continuous losses in trading with a related party or a certain party, not related as of now, a certain party. Then we went to inquire what is that related party or what is that particular party. So we found that there were no common directors between the borrower and that particular party with which the transactions were happening. There were no relation, no common shareholders, no director. There was no link. And then we went to, search on the public domain about the managing director of that particular company. We went through Facebook, we went through, Instagram, we went through, Twitter. Then we realized, the wife of that particular managing director, we were running through her profile. Then we saw that, simple case, we saw that Agrawal was mentioned as the middle name of the wife of the managing director, Agrawal, in the middle name. This, gave a rise to the suspicion that she might be somewhere related to the promoters of the borrower company because they were also having the same surname. Then we kept on, going into more details into the public domain, into the social media. There we came to know that she happens to be the daughter of the promoter borrowers of the, the company which is being subject to forensic audit. Or these two entities were related parties. Now, this fact was not known to the bankers, all the bankers in the JLM, they were not aware of this fact, nor this was being ever discussed. The borrowers were continuously, they refused, they were starting from the case, they were refusing to, that we don't have any link or, relation. But this relation, daughter and father, this relation, all these things unearthed, after this particular, research on the social media. So social media, I mean, we should not underestimate, this is a very good tool of mapping professionals. Then red flags, a red flag, we already know what a red flag, a red flag should never be ignored. Red flag may be a case, if, which could be a possible warning sign. So our approach should be, we should always try to dig in or try to, work on that particular red flag more. Now, what are the different red flags in case of employee red flag? There can be, refusal to take a vacation or a sick leave, or in case of, management red flags, where the management is, reluctant to provide a certain information to auditors. So all these can be red flags. So ideally, you should first, prepare a list of the red flags or the or these red flags where you need to give more focus in the forensic audit. Then another interesting, way of investigation or a very upcoming, thing, which is, which a lot of big fours are doing currently, and which I'm sure all of us professionals, can, offer this particular field of, service is, discrete checks. So there are certain organizations which they want to get a discrete checks, done for their own, employees, before recruiting a CEO, CXO, or a, CFO. They get a discrete checks or a background check done for the, such personal or such company. Or in case of, big companies, I'd say, large corporates or MNCs, before impaneling a certain, vendors or certain, manufacturers, they get a, a typical due diligence done, and that due diligence is very discreet. That is without, the knowledge of the person being investigated. So that is completely based out on the public domain, such as, all these factors you can search, like social media. Then, there are certain legal websites like lawyersearch.com is there. Then you can find that all the case laws again, that particular name, which are, pending in the different courts of law. Then LinkedIn is there. Then there are various, everything is available in the public domain. So, I mean, there's lockdown, there are certain, people who are able to, offer this form of practice because just, because of the social media, or I would say, the public domain. Now, UDIN applicability from 1st July 2019, UDIN is applicable to forensic audits as well. So if in case of each and every forensic audit or similar form of exercise, due diligence, ideally you should mention the UDIN. You should generate a UDIN and mention. Now, concluding my presentation, the requirement or merging, or improvising ourselves on the field of information technology or digital forensics. Digital forensics is a very upcoming tool. And we as, accounting professionals, should try to make ourselves conversant with the, information technology, because believe me, the cloud storage, digital signature, social media, and all these things, the data varieties and the electronic evidence is being admissible in the court of law. I think digital forensics is not an option, is a must do for all of us. I think with that, I conclude my presentation in the time which was given to me. And thank you everyone for listening to me and allowing a young member, professional, deliberating in front of all of you. Thank you. And I'm open for questions. I'll read the chat also, and I'm open for questions. Yes, sir.
So thank you very much for a wonderful deliberation on the forensic audit and fraud detection. There are a few questions. I think only 1 or 2 questions are there. How much of political pressure have you faced to dilute the findings? There is one question on the chat box.
Sir, political pressure, I definitely think in certain big accounts, there's political pressure on each one of, fraud professional that, dilute the language. Or what most of the banks do is, there are chances or there are instances where the bank professionals are also involved, or the bank managers or the branch employees are also involved in certain frauds. But what pressure these banks put, they usually ask us as professionals to dilute the language first against these particular the bank employees. They don't want to their own people get involved in any specific case of fraud. Then political pressure on diluting the findings, I think the best way of we can dilute is in the form of the language we are using. Instead of using very heavy words such as malafide intention and unscrupulous practices, wrong practices, we can use simple practice. But we should not refrain from mentioning the facts कि भाई इतना fund इस particular location पे parked है, ये particular current account खोला जिससे funds divert किए गए, and this has been parked into the sister concern of the borrower. So your strong point should be the facts. You should not refrain from mentioning your facts and then concluding part. Though, I mean, because we all are working, we all are aware that you too, because we want to work with the public sector bank, there may be circumstances, there may be chances that we might be asked to reduce down the strictness of the language. But I believe your fact should be always there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any of my professional members? I think we have very senior members who are having much more experience than. So presentations, sir, I'll be sharing with you. Presentations I'll be sharing with ACAE, and then maybe further it can be shared.
सिद्धार्थ पटोदिया जी का हैंड रेज हो रखा है. Should I unmute him just a second?
क्या हुआ तरुण?
Siddharth Patodi ji, yes sir, please.
Hand raise है. I'll just ask him to unmute.
There are not much of the questions in the chat box at the moment. Thank you, sir, for a very, very lovely deliberation on the subject. And I will now request Tarun Gupta, CA Tarun Gupta, to offer a hearty vote of thanks and also offer you memento on behalf of ACE.
Thank
Tarun,
you.
over to Tarun.
Thank you, Pramod ji. Thank you, our learned speaker of the day, Abhinav Rajvanshi ji from Jaipur. Sir, your deliberation today has brought a new dimension, I would say, to the entire topic of fraud detection and forensic audits. We have been regularly having lectures and VCMs on this topic. But sir, the way you covered your subject today was really you made it very interesting. And with the live case studies that you shared with us, with pictures and real facts, I think it made all of us understand the nuances of forensic audits. You have made the topics are very lively and made us understand the importance of this subject in our profession today. With these few words, sir, I will share my screen and offer you a e-memento, sir. Just a second. Yeah, sir, is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So it is our pleasure. It is a small token of our love and appreciation to you, sir, for the time that you have spent and the detailed presentation you have made for the benefit of our members. Kindly, sir, share the presentation so that we can share it with our members once we upload it on our website.
Yes, sir.
And with these words, sir, I will thank you again, once again, and hand it over to Pramod Mundraji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the
Thank you,
opportunity.
thank you, sir. Thank you from the core of our heart for your lovely discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, friends, we have our second session, and this session is going to be taken up by CA Srinivas Joshi, and he is going to speak on audit during COVID times. As in the last year, again this year we are going to have a long period of lockdowns. Most of the cities are going to open in the first week of 2nd of June, but we do not know what will happen afterwards, whether we'll see the lockdowns or again or not. So in these times, we have to do mostly the remote audit. So Srinivas Joshi is going to discuss on audit during COVID times. What are the ways and how to conduct the remote audit, controlling your audit risk and observing the standard of auditing. And for this, Srinivas ji, sir, we will deliberate. And before I request him to start his deliberation, a brief introduction of him. He is the partner of CVK Associates, Mumbai, and has practiced for last 40 years. He specializes in accounting, auditing, company law, and FEMA. He is a member of ICAI and ICSI since 1980. He has been presently the elected member of Central Council from Western Region for the year 2019-20. 22. He was earlier also elected from 2013 to 2016. He is the chairman of WIRC of ICI for the year 2011-12 and secretary for the year 2005-6. He was the regional council member of WIRC also for the period 2004 to 2013. He was the convener of Mulund Study Circle for the year 2000 to 2002. He has been the chairman of Financial Reporting Review Board for the year 2019-20. He has been the chairman of the Professional Development Committee 2020-21. Presently, he is the chairman of the Corporate Law and Corporate Governance Committee for 2021-22. He is also the convener of UDI Directorate. He was the vice chairman and convener of Audit Committee 2019-20 and 2021. UDI Directorate 2020-21, Audit and Assurance Standard Board 2014-15, and he is also presently the chairman of the same board. He has been currently the member of 29 committees and chief directorate of Council of ICAI for the year 2021-22. He has been the regular speaker for the seminars and students at WIRC and its branches on the subjects of accounting standards, auditing standards, company law, bank audits, internal financial control, FEMA, frauds, networking, merger, peer review, career counseling, how to face CA exams, etc. He is also the independent director of L&T Mutual Fund Trustee Limited, SBI Cards and Payments Limited, director of XBRL India ICI, and director on Accounting Research Foundation ICI. He was the president of Rotary Club of Mumbai Mulund East also for the Rotary at 2013. Now I will request Joshi ji to start his deliberation. Thank you, sir.
Just Pramod ji, can I also welcome?
Yes, sure.
Sir, may I also welcome you, being the chairman of this VCM. I welcome you to the VCM, which is themed as hindsight to insight to foresight. And we all look forward to your guidance, not only as you are the council member of the institute, from the institute side also, your guidance on how to conduct the audit during COVID time, especially when we are forced to do a lot of audit on remote basis, when we are also under obligation to follow standards of auditing. We are also compelled to manage the audit risk. So these are difficult times, and we look upon the institute and yourself, sir, in guiding us so that the audit season, though for listed company, it's already over because board meetings are already gone for considering audited results. But for SME sector, I think it is going to start now.
Yes, sir. Can I speak?
Yes, sir. We all are.
Yes. Good afternoon or good evening, whatever you want to say, to Rishi, Mudraji, who introduced me, and all my colleagues. Friends, Institute has been working overtime for all of us. I'll not say all of you, all of us over the period. And last year, in spite of COVID, Institute has worked very well under the able leadership of Atul Gupta ji, our immediate past president. And even in this period, when we started off, our president was himself affected by COVID. Before he took over on 12th of February, he couldn't take over. You are aware of it because of COVID. That is the condition in which Institute worked. And in spite of that, we conducted 2 exams. We'll be conducting this exam also as soon as possible. And we keep on fighting for this, everything, including, CABF. We have been giving support to COVID-affected chartered accountant and families up to 1.5 lakhs. Plus, of course, we also have the scheme of giving monthly assistance to widows, etc. But that is what Institute does on one side. Another side, the technical committees are working continuously to give us technical material on various aspects. On COVID also last year, ASB, that is Accounting Standard Board, and AASB, that is Auditing and Assurance Standard Board, came out with a guide for audit during COVID period. Of course, it was relating to accounting and auditing aspect and not relating to remote audit. But one thing I want to tell all of you that last year I was a chairman of PD committee, that is Professional Development Committee. This committee deals with RBI in a big way. And we came to know that we almost lost branch audits last year of banks, because banks pleaded to RBI that during COVID, the chartered accountants cannot conduct such audits. So we wrote to RBI, we conducted meetings with all 84 firms who were central auditor then of various nationalized banks. And then they were with us saying, no, at this stage, in April 19, you cannot say there cannot be any branch audits. Also, internal financial control was supposed to be introduced that time. We objected to it, saying internal financial control cannot be something that is implemented afterwards, after the year end. And secondly, branch audit is necessary. So RBI asked us how it can be done. And we said remote audit, our chartered accountants are ready to do the remote audit. Now, when we said that we are ready to do, they diluted their appointments to a particular extent, saying that they removed that 20 crore limit, which was there, that below 20 crore, 1/5 the branches, 20 crore and above advances, 100% branches. They straight made it 90%. 90% of funded and non-funded advances need to be covered. This year, we could increase the branches, even though in this COVID also they were under pressure. And this year, we could say that you can make that, but make 90% in each category of advances. That increased some few hundred branches or 1,000 branches in some of the banks. Now, this is where we started thinking about remote audit, because it was mentioned by Rishi ji where the institute is. So last year, if you go to PDC site as well as to ICS site, you will find a guidance on the remote audit. I started with this because we should know whether institute has worked, whether institute has thought. Yes, at least as far as bank audit is concerned, there is a complete guidance on how to do the remote audit on the website of ICM. That is where we started. Now, something of a remote audit is a concept that is not very new to us. The large firms in this country are fully geared up for remote audit. In fact, none of the staff of large firms is on physical duties from last year. That is from March 25th, 2022 date. The staff has not gone to office. They have left several rented premises And then the staff has been advised not to come to office up to March 22. They are fully geared up to work from home, the large firms, and they are advising their staff to stay at home and stay safe and not come to office. They have enabled the whole staff to work from home. Now, as it was mentioned by Rishiji, that whether we as SMP practitioners, small and medium practitioners, whether we are geared up and what are the challenges we face is the question. The large firms would, whatever challenges I'll tell you, you must have heard about it. It's a compilation of challenges and the solutions, because you would have heard challenges and solutions in last year also. Many of us faced also. I personally also faced coming from a smaller firm and now mid-sized firm. Now all this taught us several things, and I have just compiled something how to come out of it or how we really go about it in this period. Just at the beginning, I like to tell you that this is not a technical lecture on various technologies. Technology people will tell us if we go to them, if we need to go to them, how to make our firm technology driven. That is not the purpose of this lecture. The purpose of this lecture is to see what challenges we are facing and how we can meet those challenges, including the accounting auditing standards, where we are facing challenges today as chartered accountants because we are in remote audit. And these challenges to overcome need technology with us. And technology, how to implement, is the job of a IT engineer, and he will implement it for us if we really know what we want. So the discussion is what we want and how we can really do the work and how we can see the challenges are met. Now we have about an hour or so. So I'll go through my presentation. Your questions, you can put it in chat box. Friends, if you think of COVID-19, the challenge is to survive first. So that fear of that I will not survive is on the mind, highest on the mind of all of us. And that is what all the things why we are facing all the difficulties today, because human beings are afraid of dying or afraid of being very, very sick and spending lakhs on the medical facilities, which are in turn not available. You don't have oxygen, you don't have medical beds, you don't have medicines, you don't have vaccine, and then you are in great mental pressure to do the work. If we are the auditors, or if we call ourselves chartered accountant auditors, we cannot be in that state of mind. If we are in that state of mind, we can never do the work allotted to us, especially audit, which has a lot of analysis required and lot of mental ability required. And if we are not comfortable, if we are not cool, it is not possible to really approach or really access what we need to do in the right manner. Now let us go to the challenges. In a nutshell, I'll tell you how I'll cover the subject. I'll tell you challenges relating to staff. I'll tell you challenges we are facing relating to office. I'll tell you challenges relating to client that we are facing. Then in the solution part, we'll talk about what we require to change. Second part, we'll cover how we will go for audit quality. Third thing we'll cover in solution is how we can go for personal improvements. Then we can also think of use of this audit to create new opportunities. Friends, the problem is that we are always think of something new. Why we attend such kind of seminars is that we'll get something new and we can improve, or we can improve our income. Now coming to the subject proper, let us think of challenges we faced last year, which unfortunately continued this year. When we were in November, December, January, we thought that yes, now we are out of it probably, and the normal life will start. But unfortunately, the second wave and expected third wave has created huge issues again, back to zero. So we are back to zero. MSME sector, on which we chartered accountant depend heavily, is in great trouble, because SME sector of our chartered accountant will depend on MSME sector for audits and for other work. And when that sector, which has almost 40% contribution in GDP, is in trouble, obviously our offices or our CAs in practice would be in the same trouble, unless you are in project finance. Now, project finance also has suffered substantially because no new opportunities for investment, or no major involvement in repairs maintenance is happening today, and nobody is ready to invest, even though banks are ready to finance. Now, even that sector of our practice has suffered heavily because there is no demand for loan. So, saying that, what is in staff? Let us see what issues we are facing. All I am relating only to audit. That if I have to do audit, I need staff. I need staff in a big way. We were doing audit in a traditional way all these years. And in a traditional way, we are so much used to visiting the client office. And then that needs a huge staff. So many of us have n number of chartered accountants, then non-CAs or non-qualified personnel, as well as article clerks, and who are with us to do this work. Now, none of them are attending. Even in large cities like Calcutta, Mumbai, Delhi, we have a very serious problem of attendance. The parents, especially of articles, are saying that we will not send our wards to the office. Now, there are some of my staff started coming to office after about October or November, and I faced the second challenge. The second challenge I faced was, they said we'll come to office. That also, of course, we were asking only 5 or 10 people to come on a particular day, and we were staggering them. But they said we'll not go to client's office. Now, going to client office was absolute must. When we were doing audit in the past for last 25, 30 years, where we are doing audit, we always thought that we must send a staff to my client. Otherwise, I can't do the audit. We always, even though everything is computerized with all our clients, including MSME clients, we always thought that we have to visit. We are so much used to visit and do the work. We were completely nonplussed as our staff resisted going to client and said we will not do it. None of them went for even 2021 March stock verifications. So they were not ready to go. Another major issue with our staff. The third issue, especially in metros like Mumbai, is that there is a complete travel ban. We cannot go out, currently we cannot go out in private vehicles, but the trains, which is a lifeline of Mumbai, or metros, which is lifeline of many metro cities, is not allowed to ply, or unless you are in an essential service, you are not allowed to go. So if the first is staff is not attending. If they attend, they are not ready to go to client. Third is they are ready to go to client, but because of travel ban, I cannot send them there. Now, the last thing that we faced in most of the cities here, or you also must have faced, is the students and some of the staff members who are helping us in audit have gone to their respective villages. And they say, we will operate from here if you want. We cannot. Don't ask us to come to office and work. We will work from our villages. Now, working from village was a big problem. They have no laptops, there is no light or electricity, there is no connectivity, the internet is slow. Now, staff is not available physically in the locations where the chartered accountant is or where the client is. And these were the staff issues that we faced last year, and now currently facing again April, May. Because all the dates of filing are being postponed, we are little easy and hope that this COVID will go down and we can go back on the physical part of our audit, or a physical audit. Coming to the office-related challenges, let us talk of office-related challenges. First challenge that all of us faced last year, and again unfortunately started facing, is there is either no recovery of dues, or there is a substantial delay in getting the fees. Now, this is a complete liquidity crisis. Last year, we ran it somehow with all rent, electricity. We have all fixed expense, and we have been running it without any recovery or substantial delay in recovery. And as we could not complete the work up to December last year, or maybe up to March this year, the problem is that we are not even able to bill. So there is no question of recovery because there was no billing. Now, another unfortunate thing that has happened in metros is that the especially audit fees. The audit fees, the clients are saying, last year itself, they said we have no liquidity and you reduce your fees for 20 audit, where 1920 was a normal year. But this year, that in 1920 ke baad 2021, the turnover itself is has been substantially reduced. So they want to reduce the audit fees. This is very serious audit related issue as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Request for reduction in fees because of reduction in turnover. And when the turnover went up multi-fold, they never paid us multi-fold in the past. But when it is reducing substantially, they are telling the auditors who are there for a number of years to reduce the fees. Next challenge was to cut down the fixed cost. We have very few marginal costs in our office. So office related issue was that I have a huge staff. I need to maintain that staff because I have huge work to do whenever the economy opens, and I can't allow them to leave. And there are many other fixed costs other than staff cost also. And this is a very major challenge as far as an audit firm is concerned of maintenance with the or paying for the fixed cost. Another major thing we faced in our life is that there was a failure of many business clients. Either some of the MSMEs and other clients closed down, or they have substantially downsized. Their substantial downsizing or closure actually reduced my practice in auditing first. Now coming to tax and other things, where in any case it will come in future whenever there are scrutiny cases. There were few scrutiny cases, but otherwise if you see purely audit, and today we are talking of audit, I need to carry staff, but otherwise there are failures of business clients, and I don't know whether I should keep all my staff, how many of them I should run, and see the staff is not ready to leave. Today they don't get any other job, so they may not leave. And then that burden I will have to carry whether I have enough number of clients in future or I have enough work in future or not. Another thing most of us do in audit firm is we have a target for increasing our fees every year, and we want new business, and therefore we make presentation, we try to make new friends, new persons in business, we try to meet and get. This year, since we could not meet anybody other than our own clients also we are not able to meet, we had no new business opportunities. So forget, we could not grow at all. And on the other side, I told you, because of downsizing or closing down, my other work is in audit is coming down heavily. Now we had other problem also of difficulty in serving the client due to repeated lockdown. We started working, we sent the staff on audits, and we suddenly found that there is a lockdown. Now it has happened again in many states, and it is continuing for 8 days to 15 days extensions, and we are unable to work for our clients, even though we have told them, yes, we will complete. There was a comment that all public listed company audits are over or about to be over, even though there is an extension given up to 30th June. Most of the large corporates have completed their audit. But remember that this audit is being done by large firms in this country, and they are fully geared up for remote audit. People like us, we have a difficulty, and we cannot, in this repeated lockdown, can do the work. Now, there are several compliance dates which are nearer, and fortunately now they have gone further, but it is very difficult. Even last year, even though many compliance dates, we were not able to comply. Now, another thing is that retaining a quality staff. Now, friends, we have a very good person, suppose in valuation or suppose in audit, you are in forensic audit, you are in key audit like the system audits, forensic audits, you have the very key audits like you have a separate staff for your concurrent audit, you have very key persons in your organization doing different kinds of audit or different types. Suppose you have at least few listed companies, you have the person who knows really, for example, IFRS, that is, or Ind AS, and you need to retain such a quality staff because otherwise you will not be able to perform. Now, to retain this quality staff is a very serious issue in COVID, because quality staff retention needs two things. Either I must have an increment. There was no question of increment. We could not give increment. Not only that, many of us were not able to pay even the salaries of the existing employees. Second is we tried a pay cut. Many of the CF firms tried a pay cut. But to this staff, which is a very high level quality staff, they never accepted any pay cut. In fact, they wanted increment or bonuses, and it was not possible. This year again, to retain a quality staff is a big challenge for many of the mid-sized firms who are going with this particular level of work and trying to improve. Now, let us come to the third aspect of our difficulty, that is client-related issues. Now, one very major problem for audit in client with any client is that the client has no staff in his own office. Even client staff is working remote. Now, if client staff is working remote, he will give you 100 reasons why what you are asking for cannot be provided, because he's just not available there. He's just not there. And he says everything is in office, or everything is not even in office, is in godowns, and I can't retrieve it. Now, the problem is that the staff not being there, you cannot even go visit for many things like various cash count, inventory counts, asset counts, or investment counts, if they are physical. Now, anything that you need to visit the client is not possible, because client himself or his staff is not there, especially in service industry. In manufacturing industry, workers are there. Again, the staff is not coming for all the days. Another very major issue with the client as far as audit is concerned is internal financial controls. If I have to certify IFC for a client, internal financial control for a client, I find there is a substantial dilution of control with my clients this year. Now, if there is a substantial dilution of control, I am at risk. First risk is how I sign IFC certificate. But the second and the major risk is whether I am getting a right record at all. So dilution in control is a very major issue for all of us when we are thinking about the audits either last year or this year. In fact, if some of the audits of the listed company done this year, and I had some occasion as a Senate Council member talk to some of the auditors, they say this year we found errors we made last year in the remote audit. In spite of these firms well versed in remote audit, they found that last year they made some mistake which were located this year. Now, this is really they were also in pressure last year to complete in time, and they didn't know also suddenly without this how without physical, because part of the audit even they were doing physical, and now they made mistakes, and they are in pressure this year whether there will be new mistakes or some other mistake this year. So this was another issue of controls. Now, there were many financial frauds in the economy. Financial frauds were very means the risk of fraud was always there in such situation. When there is a pandemic, when there is a panic, every panic creates many possibilities in the economy for fraud, and many of them have happened. Simple frauds we have heard in the economy is EMI moratorium fraud. They say that you pay so much money, we will see that you get a big moratorium from your bank, and they just took the money and nothing happened. The vaccination fraud, very recently happened, that they say if you want vaccine, you register on our site, we'll ensure you get a vaccine, and nothing happened. Now, there are so many frauds happening through EMI, through emails and other things, that when you go to client, you don't know which fraud he is subjected to, and therefore whether you have a right control over that work, and whether the frauds you will be able to detect. Now, there is one more thing I like to tell you, that because this condition prevails, you will have to do several things unacceptable to the client. When I am doing the audit, I have several things. See, all these years, my clients are there with all of us. Clients are for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in the firm, or even more. Now, coming to that, he has never faced a situation where I qualify a report. Whether current year I find, or last year also I found, that I have to give CAM, that is SA 701, where key audit matter I wanted to mention. Sometimes if you see 706, I wanted to, SA 706, I wanted to give EOM. So emphasis of matter is something which I gave last year. But other than that also, we gave modified report. We gave modified reports last year. Modified report friends, you are aware, is SA 705, and it gives 3 kinds of modification to the report. SA 700 is on clean report, what we call in local language, but it is an unmodified report, a technical word. And a modified report is given under SA 705, which talks of 3 modifications. One is, if a particular item is not to your satisfaction, you will qualify a report. You will say, subject to non-provision of so-and-so expenditure, I say the accounts are true and fair. The second type of qualification or the modification, is the adverse report. Adverse report is a report where we wrote that the accounts do not give true and fair. So that is the second kind of report we gave. And the third kind of report we gave, disclaimer, that we are unable to say whether accounts give true and fair view or not. When we went into this mode last year, and we are still in the same stage this year, the client is highly unacceptable to client. He has never thought that his reports can have such kind of things on the paper, and which the auditor who is there for 30 years, who has guided us, he said, you guide us how it will go. Many things cannot be corrected. What is there in COVID, what has happened in the client's place cannot be corrected. And I will have to use CAM or UM or modified reports even this year. And maybe because of this, there's a big audit challenge of losing the client. And I don't want to say that our own colleagues would accept that audit, in spite of if the person says, I'm just walking out because you are giving qualified report. We were talking on ethical standards yesterday, and the question was whether audit can be accepted by another chartered accountant, in which cases he cannot accept. So there were several conditions in which, suppose there is no NOC from previous auditor, and genuinely he hasn't got a fee, and some list was there. In one of them, the list was that the auditor is removed, previous auditor is removed because of qualification. Then the ethical standards also.
But bear with me on that.
I think can we, hello.
Sir, I have unmuted muted everyone. Kindly unmute yourself, sir.
When I say a mentor,
Sir, kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah. I hope you are finding some value in this, and we'll continue. Now, coming to these unacceptable decisions, as I say, that various things that we have, we cannot correct. I cannot help client. And I, even this year, as far as audit during COVID time is concerned, I will have to use all 700 series, 700, 701, 710, 720 on other information, 705, 706. And also, these things need to be talked about, these things need to be internalized by us. Coming to, I already mentioned, ICAI publication on accounting auditing gives several issues on accounting auditing during COVID period. It's a 48-page publication, 24 pages on accounting, including Ind AS, and 24 pages on auditing, and I will discuss some of them. Friends, one of the things that you will think about audit is why we are not diluting the accounting standards or auditing standards. One of in this COVID period, one of the things I'll tell you, there is slightly, I'll digress in a little here. The institute is thinking of having a separate set of accounting standard and a separate set of auditing standard for small and less complex entities. It's about to go through that. Accounting Standard Board has issued on 1st April 2021 the new guideline for exemptions to small and medium enterprises about several disclosures. I hope that all of you go through the site of ASB website, the web page of ASB on ICAI. Otherwise, the conveners can download that and send it to all. As to these two things, one is this ICAI publication on COVID-19, which of course many of you must be already downloaded last year itself. But this particular Accounting Standard Board relaxation to small and medium enterprises, please see what relaxations are there. It's a separate subject by itself. There can be a lecture also on that as to what exemptions are currently available. As a part of Auditing Standard Board also, I'll tell you, I'm a part of Accounting Standard Board also, that as a part of Auditing Standard Board also, we are about to release something relating to small and less complex entities. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. Worldwide, there has to be a simpler audit required to be done, whether COVID or not. And this is the way I think the world is thinking. We are also on the same line. But what I'm giving you one of the insight is, the last year Atul Gupta ji had an international conference which was hosted by ICN, where we had asked various leaders from CAPA, SAFA, IFAC, etc. The world leaders came and spoke in that international seminar hosted by India. There was a question that last year the Italy said that we want dilution of the accounting standards. For example, if you are saying whether a concern is a going concern, then you are looking only at 12 months in future about the going concern. They say that in the current period, last year they were talking Italy, saying that in the current period, all the corporation in Italy cannot be a going concern. If you really see the way the Italy has faced the pandemic, and then they said that therefore the period should be extended to 36 months for considering whether a concern is a going concern or not. Now this is a dilution. Or they said some of this standard, if it is not possible, the application of the standards, either accounting standards or some of the auditing standards, need to be suspended. And to your surprise, the world leaders said nothing like that is possible and required. Accounting and auditing standard as they are today help the auditor to take a view in every possible situation. And therefore, it is not required to dilute anything or postpone anything or suspend anything. Everything is there if the auditor has really learned the thing. And this is the opinion of the world leaders. And therefore, all of us chartered accountants should know that no dilution, no suspension, no extensions will be available. Except I told you some concessions have come in India for small and less complex entities, that is SME entities. Now coming to, let us take several examples as to which essays we will find very difficult to really apply or really work through our clients. And I made a small list of essays, this essay standard on auditing, which we will find very difficult in COVID period to apply. Or we are already facing that. We have faced it last year, we will again face it this year. First, I like to mention about essay 500 on audit evidence. Very, very basic standard on 500 series, the very first in the 500 series. And I hope you are all aware that there are 46 auditing standard, 45 standard and 46 is SQC1, which is a mother standard. And this particular standards have various series. One series is 700 series, which is reporting. 500 series is on basics on various auditing, where it is evidence. Now, audit evidence is something. The audit evidence standard says that we need sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Now, sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence is well explained in the essay 200. Actually, that's a basic standard. And they say sufficiency relates to quantity and appropriateness relates to quality of the audit evidence. Now, quantitatively, it should be sufficient for us to take a view, take up opinion, give opinion. And appropriateness is the qualitatively, all the evidences are collaborative, and therefore we can reach to single conclusion. If they are not, then our conclusions are obviously unpleasant, unacceptable to the client. So this is the first mother standard or one of the standard in audit evidences, saying that you have the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence required. For that, using information provided by the entity is the major thing an auditor does. So he depends on the information provided by the entity. And when he depends, because he cannot audit everything, he's on test check basis, he's on sample basis. And therefore, the auditor has to evaluate whether information given to him is sufficiently reliable for audit purposes. Now, the point here is, again, remember, sufficiently reliable. In COVID period, I told you there is nobody with the client. If there are less number of people, the right kind of people are not there. Some of them have left. They are themselves not in control. And I am trying to see SA 500, where the information provided by the client, I'm evaluating for sufficiency, for whether it is sufficiently reliable for audit purposes. Now, who is sending the information is also a problem. Now, I am asking the information to the accountant or CFO or something. He gets it from a clerk or a peon who is there in this physically available, and then he passes on. today the who is actually giving me the information is a big issue there in audit. I get an email from a right person, but I'm very sure in COVID situation, he is sitting at home. So I'm very sure it depends on someone else to do that. And therefore, the sufficiently reliable information, whether it is reaching me, is a very, very serious issue in remote audit that I want all of you to know. Now, you know, the standard SA 500 also says that information can be obtained from different sources. This is only internal source which management gives. You have a information from insiders, information from outsiders, and information through experts. Now the last two, first of all, I have a doubt whether I got the right information from inside the organization. Now I am not able to approach the outsiders or to the experts of this unit, and therefore I am in a great problem. Now, friends, this particular standard on evidence is extremely important because in COVID, the standard what is expecting from us, we should know before signing any audit report. We want this, it says, of 5 ways of getting evidence. All of you are aware. It is inspection, observation, confirmation, recalculation, and reperformance. I repeat, inspection, observation, confirmation, recalculation, and reperformance. And then using analytical procedures to see whether evidence is right. You are aware that inspection, observation is not possible in COVID, and confirmations are very difficult to come because from those I am trying to get confirmation, they don't have staff. Bank doesn't have staff to confirm even the balances in the bank. Forget the debtors and creditors and all, and letters being sent, etc. Now, another thing that this particular standard talks about is on, I told you, on quantity and quality of the evidence. Now, next point about this particular standard is obtaining evidence through audit evidence about the accuracy and completeness of information. But accuracy and completeness of information, I see the basic thing about signing any financial statement, whatever is recorded is first of all complete. It is all transaction of a particular period have been recorded or not. That is for completeness. And about the accuracy, there is a maker-checker concept. Maker-checker concept is seriously in doubt as far as COVID situation is concerned. And therefore, I personally feel that in this case, it is very difficult to find accuracy and completeness in the audit information or the information received by us. Next is in this standard talks about evaluating whether information is sufficiently precise and detailed for audit opinions, audit purposes. Obviously, the information is not precise, whatever is just getting collected. And secondly, it is not many times detailed enough to take a particular opinion, give a particular opinion or decision. So this is one of the major standards we are likely to violate during audit process as far as remote audit is concerned. Another thing, what we have a problem in internal financial control. Now, you know what IFC guidance note says right in the beginning. The guidance note was issued as early as in 2015, and currently, of course, the IFC for banks have been issued last year. Now, coming to this IFC guidance note, it says that the controls. Now, friends, whether IFC is applicable to you or not for a client, internal financial control relating to financial statement is extremely important for any auditor to sign any audit report, whether you are actually signing an IFC report or not. Now, the guidance note talks of the testing of this control. They say designing of control and testing of control. Now, testing of control, the guidance note talks of 3 levels. One is testing throughout the year. Second is testing nearer to the balance sheet date. And third is testing after the balance sheet. And most of the control, the guidance note says, should be tested nearer to the balance sheet date. So this was not possible last year. Again, this year, it is going to be very big challenge. At least 20, I was satisfied that what was done throughout the year, because the lockdown started somewhere at the end of March 20, that is around 2025. And therefore, we could do something about it. But this year, we are not able to do either of this. Full year, I have not tested the control. Nearer to balance sheet date, I have not tested the control. And after balance sheet date, we are in the same suit today. So this is a very, very difficult certificate for me. It was less difficult last year than it is much more difficult this year. Coming to the next auditing standard, as mentioned by Rishi, next auditing standard is SA 505 on external confirmation. I don't want to, let's say there is a big procedure given for external confirmation, and I don't think our SME clients, SMB clients, small and medium clients can really go for external confirmation for us this year. Another standard I'd like to mention is SA 550 on related parties. Friends, these related parties, how the standard describe related parties are parties which can be operating through extensive and complex range of relationships and structures. Now I am not able to get the normal structure understood. Forget this very highly complex and extensively complex range of relationship structures. The standard talks about information system being ineffective in identifying the particular related party transaction. Now, first of all, the information system cannot be tested currently. If they are modified, the client has modified, also cannot be really tested sitting at a remote location unless you have a partner who has done CISA. And then, if you are really finding out that it is ineffective in identification of something, it's really a challenge for all of us. Another standard, friends, I'll mention is SA 570 and going concern. Now, friends, when a concern is not a going concern, it's a very big standard. It can be a separate set of lecture on auditing standard. The person will explain you better. But it talks of when a concern is not a going concern. And some of the major things given there, I'm not talking of things like continued losses and continued negative net worth, etc. That is for last several years. I'm talking of a particular year. We are looking at 2020 or 2021 as a year when I sign it. One is expected failure in repayment of loans when they become due in next 12 months. This is happening regularly for SME client. They would fail. I know very well. Then is it a going concern or not? Can I say it is not a going concern because they are bound to fail? They have no arrangement made to pay these loans repayments at a given time, and they have serious liquidity issue. Friend, I want you to say that understand the difference between two. The solvency and liquidity are two different things. All my clients are solvent, but they are not liquid. My all clients, in especially the builders having huge assets, crores of rupees or hundreds of thousands of crores but it is not selling. Today they have a problem of selling those assets. So they are solvent but highly illiquid. But this standard source of liquidity, if you are not able to pay for your debts, pay for your creditors, then you are not, maybe you are not a going concern. A major issue in audit this year, and it was last year. Another, it talks of negative operating cash flows. Many of my clients have negative operating cash flows today. It also talks of substantial operating losses. Yes, they are making substantial operating losses. It talks of inability to pay the creditors on due date. Yes, most of my clients are not paying the creditors on due date. The several criteria given in SA 570 would be met. Still, whether I want to say it is not a going concern, I go by management representation saying, no, I want to run the business. And somehow I'll manage. I managed last year, this year also I'll manage. Whether that is sufficient according to SA 517, no. And this is a very, very major issue for you to say that accounts are being prepared on a going concern assumption, which I do not feel is feasible. When you say that, I told you, unpleasant situations would arise with you. Coming to the next part about the one or two accounting standard we'll go through. Accounting standard 28, friend, impairment of asset. I don't know how many of us really do impairment of asset. Large firms do impairment of asset testing every year. And there is a beautiful standard, AS28. It's very pleasant to read it's a very long standard. By the time you come halfway, you forget what you have started reading in the first few pages. But impairment of assets is something that is likely to happen. All of us should know in a COVID kind of situation. Imagine of a situation of a car company which has dies and molds, and it says we will make 1 lakh cars, the outer cover of a particular model of a car from this. But they have this industry introduces new versions every 2 years. So 2019, they decided that I will sell 1 lakh cars they thought that they will sell 1 lakh cars in next 2 years and introduce a new model. Now, new models would be continuously introduced by your competitors, even by your firm, maybe a year later or 6 months later, but they would be. Now, you are not sold 1 lakh pieces from that dies and molds, but then that write-off or a depreciation was based on the number of pieces generated, because engineering estimate said that 2 years we will introduce new model, but either you have as many pieces you made, you can depreciate accordingly. The cost can be depreciated. Now you are in the impairment mode because you are not made sufficient cars from that, and you have to impair this ride and mode in spite of it is usable, but the cars cannot be sold because the new models coming. I'm just giving you an example how the impairment works. Inventory obsolescence. Friends, the inventories would last year, especially inventories went obsolete on the shelf of supermarkets. Even today, supermarkets have suddenly got closed and they are not able to operate, or they are not allowed to operate. Again, lot of stock will perish or would not be would go obsolete on the shelf. And whether you are talking about the impairment in stocks, in a sense, the write down of stocks. Brand destruction. Friend, I don't know, this is a very new concept I heard in one of the seminar, and I want to just see as a part of our audit. Brand destruction is something like this. You were using only Dettol. Dettol spent crores. The Cadbury spent crores on promoting their brand. When you went to markets last year, especially, Cadbury was not available or Dettol was not available. You went for Savlon, you went for some other products. And then you found those products are okay and they are cheap also. Why I should go for this? This is brand destruction. Brand destruction, brands are valued and they are purchased. And this type of brand destruction is a part of impairments, friends, often of not a physical asset, but intangible asset. And here, such kind of things, if you are doing some medium-sized companies or larger companies, this brand destruction, etc., become very important for you in AS28. Now, AS240 on frauds. I talked on fraud a lot before also. And this particular standard on frauds talks of various fraud risk factors. These fraud risk factors, various fraud risk factors. One of the factors is incentives and pressures. Now, incentives are many in COVID period, many for somebody to do the fraud. Pressure is another thing that for listed company, there may be pressure to still show the results if they are not good. Suppose a bank wants to show better results, a cooperative bank wants to show the better result, then that can be a pressure. There can be frauds. And there can be, they also talks of fraud risk factors as opportunities. Opportunities are many. Attitude which is different, and attitude can change of a good person also in such circumstances. Friends, the frauds which have happened in the worldwide are not necessarily fraud relating to misappropriation of asset. When you will tell me as auditor, yes, I'm fully satisfied that my client and his people are very honest and they will not misappropriate even cash or any other asset. We are not worried in SA 240 at all. It is wrong. Friends, most of the frauds, including Satyam fraud, if you see ILFS, the diversion of funds in ILFS or Satyam, inflating the results, they were frauds which are called financial reporting frauds. There was no misappropriation of asset in Satyam. It was only jacking up the financial position on both sides and saying that they are very highly profitable. Now, this kind of fraudulent financial reporting can happen in any of our medium-sized or large, even small client. Because why it will happen? One, inadequate segregation of duties. I started with that saying that there is no maker checker in most of the concerns that I'm auditing. Inadequate internal control, such as, for example, there has to be physical safeguards which are missing or they are very few. There is a lack of complete or timely reconciliations. Friends, the frauds in banks happen because they are not monthly reconciliations or there is no control over bank account. And these frauds cannot be found. I hope some of you may be member of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, which has published a book many years back on the fraud, which tells you the importance of bank reconciliation, how the entries were missing on both sides, receipt side and payment side, equal amounts, and the checks were drawn just to match. And huge fraud was made of amounts which were collected from sale of scrap, receipt from old debtors, refunds received from various government authorities were filed away on the other side, and both entries were missing from the cash book, bank book that we call, and still the bank reconciliation match. Because of no timely bank reconciliation or incomplete bank reconciliations or small differences being ignored, all this was not found out in that. So this is one of the fraud areas which is possible with our clients. Tolerance with petty offenses. Now, petty offenses, because the client depends on its staff. They say, छोटा मोटा तो होता ही रहेगा, छोटा मोटा तो होता ही रहेगा. This is dangerous. छोटा मोटा जब भी होता है ना, the fraud SA 240 says the smaller things added up can become a very big thing. So there you have to be very, very cautious. Now, there are several specific responses which are advocated. A substantial analytical procedure should be possible to see that fraud can be detected. Now, in this COVID period, I can't do substantial analytical procedure. Then it says you do confirmations, get external confirmation that will reveal the fraud. Again, the problem I already mentioned to you on SA 505, external confirmation. Inquiries, physical count, inquiries with individual outside management, all we talk. And all these specific responses given in SA 240 are not today possible in an audit. And therefore, we have the highest risk of frauds not being detected. They were not detected last year, not detected this year, and petty frauds being ignored by the management because of the dependence on lower staff or dependent on the type of staff available on a particular date of the transaction. Now, friends, one of the things in remote audit, another very major problem in remote audit that we have faced is scanning of documents. Friends, scanning of documents under SAP or Oracle or other such systems is a part of the process. There are officers appointed who are responsible to scan every document and certify it for completeness and accuracy of scanning and readability. Our problem in scanning is that the document is not complete. Completely, it is not scanned. If it is scanned, it is not readable or retriable. And now here, when I ask for a scanned document in case of remote audit from my client, either the document is missing. He is not able to find the document to scan because there is no processes for scanning at all. Second is when I get it, it may not be readable at all. Another risk of fraud is it can be altered and sent because it is a document. They can photocopy, they can alter whatever they like. Again, they scan and send you. You'll never know that this is a scanned document which is actually altered. So scanning is, there is no system of scanning. There are missing documents. Documents are not readable. Documents can be altered. And last and the most important thing is that it can be incomplete. Suppose a particular document should have 100 pages. You are not going to check on the computer that whether you received all 100 pages. They can remove in the scanning or while sending you some of the critical pages of that document. And those you will find you have never read. They say we sent you the agreement. Actually, the agreement is incomplete. Key things have been missing from there, or they are not properly scanned, or they are blank, or they are very hazy, and you are not able to see. So scanning was thought to be for remote audit one of the ways. Scanning, friends, was possible only for few documents. Another problem in India because the scanning is not regularly done by most of the organization. So when I asked for 150 documents, including I was checking say minimum 3 months sales, that was hundreds of sales invoices. I asked only 100 sales invoices out of 2,000 they have. They will not scan 100 sales invoices unless there is a system generated invoice which they can send me. But otherwise, you will find many of the purchase invoices. Listen, how many you want? Why you want so many of them? Why you are asking so much? Why you have a doubt? And the scanning will not be done. So this remote audit, many of us have done on scanned document. I told you several issues in scanned documents, and it is very difficult to depend on that evidence as a true evidence. So we have given CAM. Remember, we have given CAM in all remote audits saying this is a remote audit. Number one, sample size was not really up to mark. Second is whatever sample we selected, we did not get the full response from the client. And our opinion is based on what we received, including management representation later. Whether such a CAM was right, not right, means first in a CAM you have to state 701. I will request you to see October 2019 issue of ICI Journal, which has a separate article on scam. This particular article gives several examples of scam, how it should be stated, like what you should state as a problem that you have and how you solved it, and what is your opinion, whether your opinion changed because of that, or if it did not change, then why it did not change. And if they did change, obviously it cannot be CAM, it will go in the qualified opinion, it will not be CAM. So it beautifully explains that. But then this is where the remote audit, you have a issue. Now, what are the solutions, friend? We'll quickly go to the solutions. Friend, first solution is, and you should know, all of us should know, that nothing changes if nothing changes. Now, if you want to change something, you want to come out of this, we need to change. So we must change, and change in the way we practice is the only way out of this mess. Now, for example, I talked of cost. We must cut cost without compromising quality. Now you will say, is it possible really for a chartered accountant to cut cost without compromising quality? I can't remove my special staff. I can't have lesser people, and I don't know what will happen. Friends, one maxim you remember in this case. The maxim says, life is not expensive. You know, we have realized that if the grocery shop is open, I can leave. I can leave for months and years without, going to hotel. But then it says, therefore the maxim says, life is not expensive, but it is the lifestyle that is expensive. So can we change our lifestyle to see that our costs are reduced without compromising the quality of output that I can give, is one of the thought I like to leave you as far as the cost is concerned. As far as, now let us go to remote audit and what we need in remote audit. If we know what we need in remote audit, you can always go to IT person and get it done. You have done it. I'm not saying many of the firms have done it. My firm has done it. Your firms also would have done it to a certain extent. And as I told you, this is not a lecture on technical part of how office automation can be done. You can have a speaker telling you 100 things about the automation. I'll tell some of you. Now, office automation is creating a virtual firm. Creating a virtual firm means you will be looking at a video where a person runs his office only from his van, and he moves all over Canada, USA, and works from his van for several years. He has no office. He's moving in his car and in his van, and that is his office. And this is the extreme end of creating a virtual office and how a virtual office. And he has several people working from home or their own locations, and he has created a huge tech firm with the help of technology, a firm which gives advices on various things. The firm which does many things, and they earn very well, all of them. Coming to this creating a virtual office, what we need a practice management software. Now, practice management softwares are available through the CMP Committee for Members in Practice, offers several free or very, very cheap practice management software. But I'm telling you about softwares that we need. Institute of Chartered Accountant is spending huge amount, and we will come out with some practice management software and the documentation software very soon, in another couple of months, and will be offered. It will be as fantastic offer as a Acae, something that is available of 60, 70, 80,000 or a lakh would be available as low as 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 maybe. And it's so low. So practice management software, if you're not using, probably Institute will help you to get a very detailed one very soon. But otherwise, having practice management software is one of the solution of making our office a virtual form. Now, one of the things we tried is laptops. We tried to send laptops to the staff which was staying at home. My articles, my chartered accountants, my other staff, I sent laptop. I said laptop is very happy. Yeah, my office became very virtual. What I did VPN. So they could get the login to the server very simply. And then I said, you have a laptop. Now nothing, my office is virtual. It wasn't as easy as that. Because they said, sir, we don't have anything on the laptop. Where are the softwares on the laptop? Where are packages on the laptop? You have sent a laptop, but that time it was connected. Now, even if it is connected, many of the laptops need their own softwares. So I bought softwares. So you need not only laptops, but packages for laptops For example, if you don't want to share, then you have a person who is doing taxation or audit, or a certification relating to, say, international transaction. You need to give a package which compares various international transactions and give you a right kind of reports. Now, friends, use of cloud, for example, we need to do put your server on the cloud. It's very costly to put a server, but data can always be put on the cloud and access. Then you need another package, is employee performance package. You must have heard of it. Now, employees are sitting at home. You do not know their productivity. You need to know the productivity of employee, the number of hours they have attended, whether they are really able to do the job. You know, it will take time. Something that happened in 2 days or 20 days will happen now, maybe in 200 days. Now, whether it is possible, whether they are not working, they are really working, how many hours they are clocking, what kind of work they are doing daily, the report can be generated and employee performance can be tracked even from a remote location by you if you use the employee performance package. Now you need to invest in cybersecurity also, antiviruses and several things. Now, one of the very, very major thing other than VPN gateway is a must for me to approach my server there at any point of time, whether it is in cloud or otherwise. But it is a very safe gateway, and we should create password for as many employees as necessary. One of the major thing in a virtual office today required is video conferencing facility. I must have either Zoom, WebEx, Google Hangout, or Microsoft Team, or whatever I can invest in. This is one of the things I can use with client, I can use with my articles, and I can use with my staff. I can sit at home, I can sit alone in my office, and if I'm allowed to go there, and I can use this video conferencing facility extensively. We as CCMs and RCMs are using video conferencing facility last more than 1 year, and we are now extremely used to video conferencing facility. In fact, all the conferences are now today. I'm sitting in Mumbai in my office and you are listening to me in Calcutta. Video conferencing facility has reduced travel cost tremendously. There is a news that the aviation industry will be in serious trouble for months to come, even after pandemic, because now people don't want to travel. This video conferencing facility, which was used by software companies only, or only for very, very large organizations which have a foreign connection, because they never wanted to travel for a small work. So they had a 1 hour video or half an hour video. Now everybody has started using video conferencing facilities. Please, in a virtual office, friends, invest in this. It will help you substantially in audits. When you are doing audits, you can interact with people. Looking at the people, having regular meetings with your staff, meeting with your client will help you substantially in doing the audit at the best. Your audit level of your audit, quality of your audit will substantially go up. One thing you should remember about all this virtual office. Hello, sir. Please be on mute. This I'm telling you, whatever you do in technology, just having tools is not enough. What we need is, we should have a mindset to use a tool. I cannot have an iPhone or an iPad. I must have a mindset to use that kind of product, or many very complicated IT packages are available, or softwares are available, or even hardwares are available. I should have a mindset to use it. Not having money, everybody may have just to invest. That will not work. For remote audits, you need a virtual firm. To get a virtual firm, you need a mindset of running a virtual firm. That is where the solution lies. Now you need also data repositories. You need data repositories for future. In pandemic, what you did and what you did not do, what you did and how you came to a conclusion at a later date, when it is challenged in any disciplinary by the client, or in the client dispute, if it is challenged by any government authorities, how you gave a tax audit report, unless you have a data repository for the work done, and you can have that repository in such a way that you can retrieve the data, what you did, what was the evidence. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to prove that during COVID period, the audit was done in a proper way. One of the things I would like to tell you is professional skepticism. Friends, professional skepticism is like a third eye. Some people, when I did my articles, I remember my partner never used to come to audit. He was little senior, not very senior. in his late 50s or early 60s. I will not remember now, but he never came to audit. We had several chapters on audit. He used to read, he used to say, keep the file with me for 24 hours, come tomorrow. I will just see. He used to read and then ask so many questions. All of CS, forget we were articles, saying that how he knows. He never came to our client for months. How he knew? We go there every day and does audit. How he knows? This is the professional skepticism. He is aware in his mind of macro picture and what it should be and what is. He says, if this is the cost, it is wrong. If this is the profit, it is wrong. If this is the contingent liability, it is wrong. When he said that, it was wrong. He said, this certificate you are given, you have not taken all the data required. I'll tell you, this figure is wrong. Now that's professional skepticism. Throughout the audit, throughout the work, he checked, he had that, and therefore he has done something great. About the audit, this is the audit, maintaining audit quality needs that. Another two things I'd like to tell you. Use of AQMM, that is Audit Quality Maturity Model 1. A draft has been released. We'll finalize it by 1st July. It will become, that draft tells us about various technology adoption, key performance evaluators, or human resource management by our firms, etc., which gives us audit quality. And this, if we adopt, whether in COVID or otherwise, AQMM is a very good concept. It is voluntary today. It will become compulsory after some years. And let us see that we adopt that. It also mentions of DCMM 2.0. Friends, this digital competency maturity model talks of level of automation relating to audit procedures. Now, this particular model we started with 1.0 version. 2.0 version is so good that it is adopted by Europe from India. UK Institute asked for that model from from our DAP, our institute. The DAP provided that to them, and now it has been popular in whole Europe, DCMM2. Now, why we should not go for automation of our firms through DCMM2? And we can, this is again a self-evaluation, we find where we stand in technology of a firm. Coming to last few things, friends, I know we have been already at 7. We should use audit to create new opportunities during COVID. Friends, have you thought beyond audit? Beyond audit means after the audit is signed, you file it, you somehow get it signed or get and then upload it wherever necessary, either on MCA site or whether it's on tax audit and wherever. And you feel that that is the end of it. Have you ever thought that itself, the audit reports, the discussion in audit, the discussion with the client over the years have given us so many opportunities which we are blind to it. And in COVID, it is more important for us to look for these kind of opportunities when we are talking of audit. Friends, for example, have you been, one of the things you know that the client is director in several companies. Have you been tracking the performance of the companies he is a director, including the public listed companies he is? And have you given him a feedback that he should resign from some of them? Otherwise, he can be disqualified for the problems that may have in that company. He will be highly obliged. If you know he has been somewhere, just to say that you are connected with him for audit and you know he is in many places. Have you ever analyzed those concerns where he's working, including partnership, even though you are not auditor there? You can analyze and tell him, these are the issues, sir. I will like to inform you, and you be either out of it or you can invest more. The other way out is saying that, yes, I have analyzed and this is one of the fantastic way. Let us divert your investment there because it is earning 100% return, sir, every 2 years. So let us do that. Have you ever done that? For example, another example I'm giving. Suppose your customer is having several invoices and several data. He is having either distributor network, through that he is distributing his products, a manufacturing client or a trading client, or he is actually having a direct retail sale or through his shops. Have you ever analyzed the financial position of the debtors? Have you ever told him that particular debtors, which comprises of 20% of his total debtors in value terms, are say 5 or 7, and some of them do not have the right kind of financials as per the MCA site or other information that you have, and therefore he should reduce his dealing with those debtors because he can be in serious trouble sometime? Have we gone beyond our balance sheet and analyzed the debtors and told them? Another example I'll give you. there may be many cheap options available for financial, obtaining of cheap finance. Now, have we ever, even though you may be a practitioner in finance or not, have you analyzed each of your client and offered them cheaper financial options? For example, SIDBI has come out recently with 8.38% loan at 8.38% term loans and CCs and all. So have you looked at such type of options at Chartered Accountant? Have you offered it to your clients as an additional thing? After looking at his P&L, you see, interest cost seems to be very heavy. Can I reduce that interest cost for him? And can I help him? He will be obliged. This is the way to ask fee, not to ask fee because you have been auditor for 20 years. Have you ever thought, another thought, have you ever thought of having investment advisory? You find there is a good profit of the client. He's investing in bank deposit, he's investing either in share market or FNO where he's losing money. Have you ever thought that investment advisory is possible for you to do for a client? You can, of course, in addition to all this, what I told you, to quickly summarize that, you can tell him how inventory package I can implement, asset accounting package I can implement. So I can either have the accounting packages or asset record updation, several things. These are normal things. I told you some of the things which we look into the financials and we can change. Friends, at the end, I will say that we need to change our behavior. I started with that. We are very worried. We are very agitated. We are unable to concentrate. Audit needs you to be very cool, and we must tell ourselves, yes, this shall also pass. The maximums. This shall also pass. Birbal has told Akbar that time. He said, give me one line which is good for good and bad times, both. The line is, this shall also pass. Even the best of the period will pass. Similarly, this is worst period in your life. This shall also pass. And therefore, we should practice yoga. And even though you don't want to be positive in COVID, we should be positive in our mind to solve all issues in our life. Thank you, friends. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take. I hope you enjoyed.
Very well said, sir. Very well.
I hope it was not a technology lecture on technology, because I said technology can always be adopted. I gave you various technologies that we can do, how we can improve in technology. I don't know whether that was the expectation. I concentrated more on the practical part of audit, essays, and wherever we will have the issues in actually doing the work and certifying various accounts, and how we go further to that audit reports and audited balance sheets, and we can benefit ourselves and our client benefits was the theme of the lecture. I hope you liked.
Sir, your speaking about the technology was the additional takeaway from your deliberation.
Yeah, it's okay. Then I'm happy. I thought that you expected the whole technology lecture. It was not intended. I could have done that, but I thought this was a better way of presenting the subject. If you are saying audit during COVID time, all issues of audit need to be covered. I hope you are satisfied.
We very much appreciate it. And as we have run out of time, maybe we can have one or two questions from the audience.
Yes,
and then
yes,
we will
yes. I'm happy to answer. Yeah.
Chairman, sir, there is already 2 questions in the chat box. If you allow me, then I can read it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
please.
I can read it from here. Last year, notes to financial statement included COVID-related notes on going concern, recoverability. Should it be continued? Friends, I told you there you will be more difficulty. Probably note may not be sufficient. We may have to qualify, or we may have to say it is not a going concern. We will have to go beyond mindset of note. Note, friends, one thing I'm telling you, note is not a substitute for qualification. Note is only, bypassing my responsibilities. I'm just telling what management says or what I want to escape. I'm just putting in note and asking reader to read note number 37, which he will never read, because I have again concealed it somewhere in between the lot of notes. Friend, notes, it doesn't help. You have to see all the auditing standard I told you about. You take a view. Note is okay if you are saying that they have, see what standard says. Standard says that they have to see all the issues in going concern and how they will tackle. If you are satisfied with that note, then note is enough. Otherwise, no. If you are not, this year you may have more problems in that note. You remember. Second question is, in case there is a GST reconciliation done, will it be considered as external confirmation of transaction? friends, first of all firms should know GST. I don't want to depend on outsider, but assuming it's a big company, the work has been given to a specialized firm. Now, this is depending on expert, depending on the work of an expert. We have an auditing standard, right? So, number one, what it says, the firm should be of repute. The people should be of repute, or repute in the sense they should be capable of handling. First of all, an expert has to be such a person who knows his job. Are you satisfied? Number one. Assuming that you are satisfied with that, you see his report. Even I see a report of a lawyer, suppose he has given an opinion, doesn't mean if his opinion I should accept. He may be a very good lawyer. He may be a very good tax consultant who has given an opinion that a particular tax is not payable. I can have my own opinion. All account auditing standards say it is your opinion that matters. So in a GST reconciliation, you can depend if you yourself analyze it at least cursorily, like cost accounting record. What you are asked for? At least look at cursorily. Cost accountant is signing, but yes, have you seen they have been kept in a manner required? Similarly, GST reconciliation per se is not a confirmation that sale is right. What is he doing? What is he doing? Only reconciling. He's saying this is a sale, this is GSTR1, this is GSTR3B. Yes, it is properly represented. All reversals more than 6 months, amount not paid. But is he saying amount was payable? Is that liability itself right? That is auditor's job. It is not GST reconciliation. Person who does the reconciliation job. His job is to reconcile. I have booked a bill. I say I am looking at a credit. Case of Manpasand fraud, 20% of the total sales on which GST was claimed as input were fake companies created by the whole same company. The subsidiaries or other companies which never existed. Now, friends, when you are looking at experts, the report, you should know what is to be taken and what is not to be taken. See, the liability itself he has not verified. He has said, if this is a liability, this is a GST properly claimed in the return. Not properly claimed, he will reverse it and say, you pay now. This is not claimable, or a GST, input is incorrect. He will say, yes, you are saying export? Yes. Then there is no GST. Refund is claimable. Now, there was, whether the export was there, you have to verify as auditor all the proof. Now, you have claimed from the government some export benefit which you have accounted. He will not check that, whether export benefits are right or not. He will only check, the company says it is export, then this is the way the GST will work, proportionate, the proportionate taxes. He is going by GST law. Remember, he is not going by company law, he is not going by essays, which we have to follow, our accounting standard. His way of checking is different. He is a different kind of expert. Suppose I am looking at a construction and an architect certificate. He is looking at a material which went in. What is the cost? Whether it is right cost, he will not bother. He will say that is your problem. Whether 10 bills are payable and 11th fake bill has been introduced. That is not. He said this construction is so much valued. So that is a difference. See, every expert, I am again cautioning you, using an expert opinion. See where is expert and see how it helps me. It helps me to reconcile my sales with purchase. Agreed. But sales and purchases, which I need to check as auditor, are no way is his domain. It is my domain, and that cannot be depended upon, because GST reconciliation. I know of a case where that was taken as a sale in the profit and loss account from GST reconciliation, because the records were destroyed or whatever, and GST reconciliation. I don't think that is right. He has not checked the documents. He is not supposed to. He is having different. I mean, just a thought. I mean, this is something we should know. So that's all. Any other question? Otherwise, you can email me. My email is available on the ICI website also, but I'm just telling you very simple. My name is Srinivas Joshi. So SY Joshi 13 is my birth date. So don't worry, 13 is not a bad date. So syjoshi13@gmail.com. syjoshi13@gmail.com, available on website. Anytime you can send me a mail. I'll reply. I'm in audit profession for decades, I'll say, and talking on accounting auditing standard also for decades. And I'm with you as a professional anytime. Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We will have CA Pushpadeep Rumta giving a formal vote of thanks to our learned speaker and also to the speakers before him. Pushpadeep Rumta, please.
Hi, thank you, Rishi sir. Good evening to one and all. At the start, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone present here and say PR Ramesh, who even though could not stay with us for the entirety of the session, wonderfully illustrated how the CA profession has changed its meaning and perception over the years. We are grateful, sir, that he gracefully accepted to deliberate. I would also like to thank Sri Abhinav Rajvanshi, who took out time from his schedule to shed light on the growing importance of forensics and fraud detection in an era of growing cases of IBC. Thank you so much, sir. And finally, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to C.S. Srinivas Y. Joshi, sir. Sir, remote controlling an organization is something of high importance at managerial level. Like you explained in your example, wherein your principal would look at the files remotely and would ask the right questions. Sir, COVID has been a tight slap on the faces of people, and it has shown the need to be tech savvy. Why we need to be technologically advanced, and also we need to take support of the relevant essays when we are conducting our audit. So for example, this amazing Zoom webinars such as these are one of the discoveries of the need to be tech savvy. So I don't even remember hearing of such webinars, such video conferences in the pre-COVID era. It is just after COVID that such seminars are taking place on Zoom and other web conferencing apps. So thank you, sir, for enlightening us on how to conduct audit in such testing COVID times. We at ACAE present a memento to all our speakers. And since it is a virtual seminar, here's a virtual memento for Srinivas, sir. I hope it is visible, sir.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, it will be also mailed to you,
Yes,
and it can be laminated.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. It's a very nice memento you have made. Very good choice.
Thank you.
Very good selection. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
And finally, I would also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers, including CPA Rajiv Agarwala, who is in the parallel session and who explained outsourcing opportunities for CA. Thank you, Mr. President, and all the CA committee and subcommittee chairmen and members for such an amazing seminar. Thank you for gracing the occasion. Over to you, Anup, sir.
Thanks to each one of you. I recognize the presence of our many past presidents in this particular virtual seminar. I could see CA Sanjay Bhattacharya, who is there in the session since beginning. I could see CA Kasi Khandelwal ji, who is also there since beginning. CA Indu
Namaste,
Chatra
Kashi
ji.
ji. Sanjay sir, namaste. Bhattacharya ji, and namaste. Kashi Khandelwal knows me well.
Nice to see you, sir. I was listening very carefully.
After a long time, yes, sir. Thank you.
Very nice of you, sir. Good of you.
CA Indu Chatra ji is there, sir. CA Ketan Sataliwala ji is there. So many of our past is there.
CA HK Agarwal is also there.
Yes, CA HK Bhaiya is there.
Great, sir. Your circle is doing extremely well, and I'm very happy that you get hundreds of participants, even parallel seminars. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Two parallel things going on. Still, you get somebody on this subject, and I'm very happy. You are doing excellent, very well.
Celebrity speakers like you, we have to have so
many. Now you ensure that, and it's good.
We were keenly awaiting your sessions, sir. Actually, we heard a lot about.
Anything in audit, I will speak. I'll talk to Ranjit Babu also on this. I call him Ranjit Babu. Sorry, because Dada. Otherwise, we call our vice president Dada. You know, vice president is called Dada, and our therefore I call Ranjit sir Ranjit Babu, so that it's distinguishable from there. But I will come back. I'll come back for something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Good day, all of you. Yes.
So I am ending this session.